It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. It is Tuesday, October 1st, and it is still warm outside. A little bit cooler today, sunny and 77, but again, tomorrow 90, on Wednesday, Thursday 87, Friday 83, Saturday 88. It just keeps going, this warm streak. Well, you've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you woke up in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. So much news to cover. Israel invades Lebanon. U.S. Sending thousands of more troops to the region, as well as Pete Rose passing away, Dikembe Mutombo passing away yesterday, the vice presidential debate today, all kicking off. We've got a lot to cover for you, so stick with us on the Jeff and Bill Show. First, news and commentary with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy, on this Tuesday. A beautiful morning outside, 43 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 77 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story: President Biden expected to visit some of the communities this week that were ravaged by Hurricane Helene. Biden said the government will continue sending help to the region for as long as it takes. There's no word if the president will visit Asheville, North Carolina, which is dealing with flooding that's been described as biblical across the region. Some 130 deaths have been reported and over 100 people unaccounted for. Meanwhile, former President Trump on Monday.
As you know, our country is in the final weeks of a hard-fought national election. But in a time like this, when a crisis hits, when our fellow citizens cry out in need, none of that matters. We're not talking about politics now. We have to all get together and get this solved. We need a lot of help. They have to have a lot of help down here. We look out for one another. We pull together. We pitch in. We persevere, and we pull it through.
He's helped raise millions of dollars already for relief in the area. Kamala Khan read a statement in front of reporters and then had a great chance to answer questions from reporters and journalists.
Madam Vice President.
Yeah, that's not happening. So she talks to real journalists, former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, on a podcast called All the Smoke. They glorify smoking dope and all types of stupid stuff, among other things. But they asked Kamala Khan about her favorite snack.
One of my guilty pleasures, especially when I'm on the road, are my Doritos.
Oh, what flavor?
Nacho. Old school, original.
OG.
Come on.
Yeah. OG.
Come on.
Red
Yeah,
bag.
no, that's exactly
Yeah,
right.
red bag.
That's exactly. Got to have a napkin nearby, right?
And then they asked her what it was like when she got the call from the president that, hey, guess what? You're being installed as the presidential candidate.
Look, from the time that the president called me and told me he wasn't running, I mean, it just like everything was in speedy motion. And I was not sleeping so well. And that one morning, I had, I don't know, a few hours sleep. And I like to sleep. I just got up. I was like, and so I just went out and got a pork roast and started marinating.
Time to work.
She is so likable.
Blake, did you see the press conference that Joe Biden did yesterday where he coughs through the entire thing?
I heard about it, and I still haven't seen it. I was working on other stuff. What did you think?
So he gets really touchy that people are critiquing him for being in Delaware instead of at the White House when a major hurricane hits and creates all this destruction. I think we have 90 people that are reported dead at this point.
Over 130. Yeah.
Are we at 130 now?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So he gets
100 still missing.
Oh boy.
So he got defensive.
He gets defensive, right? And he goes, it's called a telephone, man. He literally says that. He's like, he gets angry. It's a telephone, man, because they're like, you're up in Delaware. Where are you when the American people need you? It's called a telephone, man. And he just gets so sensitive about that. But then throughout the entire press conference, he's just sitting there coughing, trailing off. Dude, this guy is so out there right now.
Unbelievable. And they just, and they don't care because he doesn't have to be elected.
Right. I mean, they're just going to, that is the leader of the free world right now.
Wow.
And then this is the questions they ask the next president, the Cheetos or the Doritos question.
Doritos, yes. Hey, what's your favorite snack after you smoke dope with us? Golly.
I like to sleep. I don't get much sleep. I like to sleep.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like a great commander in chief. That's who you want answering the phone at 3 a.m.
That's right.
Because she loves her sleep.
Are the Doritos? Wow. Where are the Doritos?
It is just, it's incredible.
It's right back to the ice cream thing. And we'll get to this a little bit later in the show, but the New York Times endorsed Kamala Harris yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And
shocker.
Well, they haven't endorsed a Republican since Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1956. So, they're a good company. And they don't really tout her accomplishments. They just make it an anti-Trump screed, right?
Sure.
Basically anybody else than this great threat to democracy.
Yep.
I went back and read the opinion pieces against John McCain. And you know what? It's a good reminder that these people just hate Republicans.
Oh, yeah.
But bottom line, that's all it is. Back then it was, John McCain is flirting with racism, outright racism in his election campaign. And he's divisive and the way they treated Bush as well.
Oh, they hated Bush. They hated Reagan. I mean, I remember as a kid, I wasn't smart enough to understand all this stuff, but I like doing political cartoons. And all I can remember is how evil Ronald Reagan was, even though my dad would tell me, no, he's a good man.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, but Dad, everything here, everybody in LA and New York and Chicago and all these newspapers, look, he's doing something wrong, so it doesn't matter.
It kind of comes down to their point being bottom line, they just want to portray Republicans as like demonic.
Yeah, and they do a nice job.
Right. So
they do. No, absolutely. It doesn't matter. Whoever puts an R in front of their name.
That's exactly right.
That's what's going to happen. So until you understand that, you can't see clearly. You really can't.
Yep.
So when it comes to the media, all right. The White House has no plans to intervene in a port workers strike that is underway. Members of the International Longshoremen's Association walked off their jobs when a new contract agreement couldn't be reached. Financial company JP Morgan says a strike could cost the country roughly $5 billion a day. Police need the public's help in finding a suspect in a hit-and-run accident in Lakewood over the weekend. Police say a driver of a pickup truck was leaving Hometown Suites Hotel on Kipling around 11:54 Saturday night. The driver allegedly hit a motorcycle rider and took off. The motorcyclist suffered serious injuries. The suspect's vehicle is described as an older model blue pickup truck with damage to the driver's side rear quarter panel. The driver is described as an older white man with white hair. Anyone with any information should call Lakewood Police. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. All right, we know that Dikembe passed away on Monday. We talked about that at the 9 o'clock hour, right after we found out about that. Dikembe Mutombo passing away at the age of 58, brain cancer. And Major League Baseball's hit king Pete Rose is dead at the age of 83, nicknamed Charlie Hustle.
2-1 pitch from Shaw into left center. There it is. Rose has eclipsed Cobb. That's number 4,192.
Man, I mean, he did everything. Call him Charlie Hustle for his base stealing, but he played 5 positions. He was part of the Big Red Machine and banned from baseball because of his gambling. And this has been the biggest sports topic over the years, one of the biggest sports topics over the years. Should he be in the Hall of Fame? Shoeless Joe Jackson is not, and neither is Pete Rose, because they gambled on games. So however you look at it, everyone knows he's one of the greatest. I mean, to me, he's top 5, if not, top 3. He was just an incredible baseball player. Pete Rose, dead at the age of 83.
Blake, I want to ask you about Pete Rose. You think he should be in the Hall of Fame?
See, I go back and forth on this. I get it. I understand the history and the integrity of the game and why they did it and why they do it. I think they may need to reevaluate it and say, okay, in a situation like this, we need to look at it maybe 25 years later. I don't know.
Do you think if he had admitted to it?
Yeah, well, he did in this book. He actually did. And let's see. Here's his last interview. Just I got this for you because I knew you wanted to talk about it.
I always believe in baseball, and I believe somewhere in the future, baseball will give me a second chance. That's all I can go on. Okay? I hope it happens while I'm alive. I hope it happens while all my family's alive, because that's really what the Hall of Fame is about. Fans and family. I don't think there's anything I could do about it except what I try to do. Keep my nose clean. Stay out of trouble. Be a positive person. Be a good public relation guy. And go around the country, which I do on a daily basis, and sell the game of baseball. I love the game of baseball. I worry about the game of baseball. I want it to succeed. I have 2 grandsons that someday will play in the big leagues. And I want them to be in the big leagues when it's really doing well.
So I don't think the commissioner at the time, Bar Giamatti, thought that he was remorseful enough, and he denied it. But at that time, both of those guys, Shoeless Joe Jackson and Pete Rose, should be in the Hall of Fame somewhere. I mean, he was absolutely incredible, and I can celebrate his. What he did on the field from what he did off the field. And, it was a different time also with the pressure that he got from bookies and, his story. He talks about it in his book, but no excuses. But I think there needs to be maybe a grandfather clause or something in there, possibly. But a lot of people feel strongly about this.
Yeah,
really
and I'd love to hear from the callers on this. 303-696-1971 or text the Dan Campos Law text line 720-819-5115. Do you think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame? Look, this was before my time, Blake. Mm-hmm. What did he write about with regards to the bookies? I saw in the Wall Street Journal 52 Reds games that he bet on in 1987. So
now I don't know if he said, listen, I always forget this. Did he actually say, yes, I bet? He's admitted he's made mistakes and he's become more remorseful over the past decade, 15, 20 years. I really do think he's been a good ambassador, if not a great ambassador for baseball. And he had a problem, and that was later in his career when he was a manager, especially. But they did say that he did bet. In the latter portions of his career,
and it's betting on the team to lose, right?
Team. No, I think that part I still haven't seen. Maybe maybe someone knows out there. As far as I know, he bet on his team to win. Now, Shoeless Joe Jackson in 1919 in the World Series, that was a scandal where they bet on him to throw the game. So they tried to lose it, and say it ain't so, Joe, and the kids, the baseball fans saying, "Oh, this ain't real, is it, Joe? This didn't happen, did it?" And he walks away and said, "I'm afraid it did, son." So he admitted it, but it's part of the story of baseball, and the dark portions, the highs and lows of the game on and off the field. And I think it needs to be told. And you just heard Rose talk about family right there. It is. I mean, it's all about family and baseball, and you taking your family out there and maybe explaining, hey, this guy had a gambling problem, but he was one of the greatest. But he corrected himself. So I would say, yes, he should be in the Hall of Fame now.
Here's an article on what did Pete Rose do. This is Sporting News.
Mm-hmm.
After stints with the Phillies and Expos, he returned to Cincinnati midway through the 1984 season as a player manager. Right. He held that post through the 86 season when he announced his retirement, shifted focus to being a full-time manager of the team. In 1989, Rose came under scrutiny by the league for allegations over placing bets on baseball after several betting slips belonging to Rose were found in an Ohio restaurant. The Sports Illustrated report connected the owner of the restaurant, Ron Peters, and one of Rose's friends, Paul Jansen, as both having run bets for Rose. Jansen claimed Rose would signal bets to him from the dugout during games, which
Correct.
Rose called ridiculous. Asked in March about the reports, Rose refused to deny outright betting on baseball, saying only that he would later have a chance to provide his side of the story. In April 1989, Giamatti became the commissioner and opened an official investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it gets into some more comments on that.
Yeah, I think he basically admitted in his book that he did, but
he lost $450,000 in a 3-month span in 1987. Okay. Jansen claimed Rose said he would consider throwing a game if a large enough bet was placed on it, and said he'd check with managers before games to ask about the health of opposing players before placing bets on their teams. He would talk about his gambling in front of a lot of people, and his answer for that always was, "They can't get me," Jansen said. He put himself above everything. "They can't get me," he'd say. "What have they got? What are they going to prove? How are they going to prove it?"
Okay. But that hasn't been proven. That's just hearsay.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, he's bottom line, he'll go down as one of the greats. Everybody knows it. But he's not in Cooperstown. So it'll remain one of the great sports debates of our time.
Yeah. I'm sympathetic to the idea that he was a great player.
Yes.
I think about this with the NIL and Reggie Bush too, and whether or not Reggie should get the Heisman Trophy back. I really don't care that things have changed. Like with sports betting, the rules at the time that you were playing were the rules.
Oh,
and
clearly,
you broke them. And just because we now allow sports betting, obviously players can't bet, and you can still get in trouble for that. Or we now have the NIL, and you can get a Ferrari as a college football player.
Right.
Doesn't change my perspective that at the time that you were playing, there were particular rules. You decided to break them for your own personal gain, and you punishment fits the crime.
Yep. No, I agree. And that's the hard thing about it. Where do you draw the line? And everybody gets second chances, third chances, what have you. So the debate will continue. Thank you, Jeff, for that. 39 in Castle Rock, 41 in Lakewood, 43 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Tuesday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Sunny and warm. Temperatures will be comfortable in the mid to upper 70s today, 40s and low 50s tonight. Quite hot for October, mid to upper 80s on Wednesday, cooling to near 80 Thursday, low 80s for Friday. Temperatures will be quite warm, deep into the 80s for the weekend. Nights will be 40s and 50s, and there's no precipitation in the forecast through the work week and through the weekend. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Yesterday, Pete Rose passed away. I believe he was 83 years old. Yep, 83. What do you think? Should he be in the Hall of Fame, Bill?
Ugh, that's a tough one. And I'm torn because, one, I'm not a baseball guy. So the idea of, I don't get as wrapped up emotionally as I do on things like soccer and snakes. So there are things where I have a little bit of distance on this one. And if baseball wants to say no gambling on baseball games and that keeps you out, okay. If that's your rules, but I'm torn because sports betting is huge and we're betting on everything and the fans. And so the idea to have this,
literally everything. You can bet on who's going to win the coin
exactly.
toss,
coin flip and everything. I mean, there are things like, which team in the Super Bowl, which team's going to kick the first field goal. You can bet on which team's going to score the first run. Who's going to get the first strikeout, who's going to be the first person that swings out. All of those things can be bet on. And the fact we go, no, but these guys can't do it is weird. I mean, I understand the fundamental as to why, but sorry, I need some delicious coffee. Okay. But there's the other side of baseball where we have the steroid era. And that's the other part where I look at it and go, well, if we're going to let some of them enter into the Hall of Fame, if that conversation happens, then why not the betting people? Because in my mind, both is sort of a form of cheating. And so that's what I'm kind of looking at. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
And that's where I'm really kind of, I'm torn on. It's weird for me, but baseball also, though, has this long, storied, historied set of rules that in my mind is unlike any other major sport. And that includes my favorite soccer. They have this long history and these little unwritten and written rules about what you do and can't do, where it takes time for them to adjust and you don't break some of these hallowed rules. And so I kind of look at it and go, I think that if the rule is no betting on games, then he has to stay out. And what it would be is, we always talk about deterrence factor in Crime and Punishment.
Yeah.
And this is a deterrent to anyone who says,
exactly right.
I could go out there and I could bet, but that prevents me from ever being in the Hall of Fame. Is he the example that prevents the kids right now from going out? Because as we know, one thing that is true in life is that children and I will say children, especially young men between the ages of 18 to 27 always make wonderful decisions. That is one thing that is universal. There aren't any stupid decisions ever made by young
That's
men
why
during
we
that
hand
age
them
range.
weapons of war
Exactly.
and send them out into a field.
But at least we teach them first. We don't just go, hey guys, here we are, come out of the back of the van. I mean, we spend a lot of time breaking them down and then building them back up mentally in order to be able to accomplish that, because young men at that age may be able to make a lot of stupid decisions. And so I can see why young men would make very stupid decisions at that age, not understanding the ramifications later on down the road. I made some dumb decisions at that age, figuring, no, I know this is probably going to hurt me a little bit, but old Bill is going to have to worry about that. Well, old Bill is here, and it sucks. And I'm dealing with it. And my friends at Balanced Well Space is some of those bad decisions. And that's it. Is we can see that those kids make bad decisions all the time. We saw Tyreek Hill getting arrested before a football game by making a bad decision by driving too fast down the road. We can talk about how the cops dealt with him, but what is not at issue is the fact that he was driving recklessly. So he was making a bad decision at that time. So that's the part, is if it serves as that deterrence, as difficult as it is, okay, I'm okay with it. And again, I'll let you self-define your own rules, baseball. I'll let you say what the rules are.
In 2004, in his book, My Prison Without Bars, Rose would admit he bet not only on baseball, but on the Reds. I knew that I broke the letter of the law, but I didn't think that I broke the spirit of the law, which was designed to prevent corruption. During the games, I gambled as a manager. I never took an unfair advantage. I never bet more or less based on injuries or inside information, Rose wrote in his book. I never allowed my wagers to influence my baseball decisions, so in my mind, I wasn't corrupt. Granted, it was a thin distinction, but it was one that I believed at the time. Yeah, I think he needs to stay out.
Yeah.
I think he needs to stay out to protect the integrity of the game. This is like the one rule that baseball's had. And I would say even that about the steroids, guys.
See, I would too. I would keep the steroid guys out too, because it
was so obvious. These guys
and the part of me is
Marvel characters.
Oh yeah, and I understand people saying, well, that was the rule of the time they played, but yeah, but guess what? Not everybody used the steroids, and that's different. Where under Pete Rose and the betting rule, everybody is held accountable for that betting rule, and everybody has that available to them. But the steroids, not everybody did them. So unless we're going to go all steroids, fine. But that or do a steroids wing inside of the Hall of Fame. And I still have Tosh, Daniel Tosh. He talks about the idea that, okay, if you want to have steroids in
let them all go.
Let them all go, because then they'll be like like your NFL Madden games. So if that's what you want, go right ahead. The all steroid sports
overall
fine.
99.
Exactly. If that's what you want, go right ahead.
8 feet.
Yes.
400 pounds with a speed of
you have field goal kickers kicking it from a 1 yard line all the way down the other side of the field and scoring. Yes. Okay. If that's what you want to do, go right ahead. But yeah, we got to play by the rules that are there.
Let's go to Tracy Longmont. Good morning, Tracy. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Hey, how you guys doing this morning, man?
Doing good. How are you?
Hello. Hey, I called in because when I heard what you said about Pete Rose, and I met him when I was a little kid. I went to stay with my aunt and uncle in Houston, and they took me to an Astros game, and they were playing the Reds. And I had all the Astros. They signed my pennant, and so did Pete Rose. I got to meet him and shake his hand when I was a little kid, man.
Oh,
that's awesome. What do you think of Pete?
I like him, man.
Yeah, do you want to see him in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know that much about baseball, but he was cool to me. That's all I can say.
He is. It's cool to meet those guys. I took my son down to meet Charlie Blackmon a few years ago when he turned 10. I don't think he'll ever forget it. Got a signed baseball by Charlie Blackmon. Man, that is the beauty of being a young boy or girl growing up in this country, meeting your sports idols and having that connection, having that story. I mean, you're carrying that all the way now. You'll never forget that.
Yeah. No, I'm 55 years old. This was like in 79 or 80 or something when I met him.
That is great, Tracy. I appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Give us a call. I'd love to hear from you. Tracy's line will be open. Do you think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame? 303-696-1971. I want to talk to you about someone that absolutely should be in the Legal Hall of Fame, and that's Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade. This guy's pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis is the son of a police officer. He's a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than just being a great guy, Dan is a real winner in the courtroom. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is so trusted that they're the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. He accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that Dan can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551 or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S Law.com. We'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Awayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
The number of people canceling their Netflix accounts skyrocketed after the co-founder of the company, Reed Hastings, endorsed Kamala Harris and donated $7 million to her campaign. According to a report, the streaming platform has the lowest rate of cancellations in the industry, but in July, cancellations jumped to 2.8%, which is higher than any other month since February. The cancellation soared unusually high in the 5-day period following Hastings' endorsement on X when he wrote, "Congrats to Kamala Harris. Now it's time to win." Trump supporters called for a boycott and posted pics of their canceled accounts online. According to Bloomberg, July 26th was the streaming giant's worst day for cancellations this year. Oregon transportation authorities waited weeks to tell election officials about an error that registered more than 1,200 people to vote, despite them not providing proof of U.S. citizenship. Oregon's DMV first learned about the illegal registrations on August 1st, but the Oregon Secretary of State says she only became aware of the error 6 weeks later. The mistake happened in part because Oregon's DMV automatically registers most people to vote when they get a driver's license or ID. Elections officials say they removed more than 1,200 voters from the rolls because of the error. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is fighting back after a judge ruled that he is not allowed to investigate voter harvesting schemes in the state.
In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're asking you the question today. You pose, in light of his passing yesterday at the age of 83, be permitted to join the Hall of Fame? Should they allow him to be on the ballot? Currently, they don't. And this stems back to gambling on games that took place in the mid to late 80s. Taking your phone calls. Let's go to Steve, Denver. Good morning, Steve. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning, folks. I definitely think he should not be on the ballot or in the hall. I believe it starts in minor league, but I know it's in major league. In every ballpark, that rule is posted. I mean, as soon as you enter the game, and the fact that gambling is allowed, outside of baseball and everything. I mean, I don't think it could be more egregious. One, it goes to the heart of the game when you're in a position to control it. And he was a manager, and the fact that he says I didn't throw a game or alter one, so what? And the other thing is, it was continued. I mean, this wasn't a one-time mistake where he's at a bachelor party and he makes a stupid mistake. I mean, this was over a period of time. So I think the decision was correct. There's a lot of irony there, though. Apparently, Bart Giamatti, right after he made that decision, he died. Rose wanted to go back to him, and he died within a very short period of time. And Rose had always said, "Oh, we had this agreement to do X, Y, and Z," but that never happened. So that's my 2 cents. And I grew up around with these great St. Louis Cardinal teams when they had Bob Gibson and Lou Brock, and things were great. So
yeah, Steve, I got to agree with you on this one. If you're going to enter the Hall of Fame, so you're essentially immortalized, right, by the sport for your incredible contribution to the advancement and promotion of that sport. And I understand he was a great player. I understand that he achieved a lot, but he also, clearly threatened the integrity of the game, was betting a lot. $450,000 one guy claimed. That was a lot of money. He obviously had a gambling addiction. Even at the end of his life, he was outside of casinos. And that audio that you played, did you hear that, Bill? You could hear the club music in the background. He's standing outside. So he had his personal demons around gambling, but there's no participation trophy for the Hall of Fame. Just because you did great or in one aspect, therefore somehow the Hall owes it to you to put you in the Hall of Fame. That is the highest honor reserved for the very select few that have contributed the very best to the history of baseball. And, whether or not it's changed later in life with regards to public gambling, obviously athletes can't gamble now. That doesn't really affect me that much. He broke the rules. He threatened the integrity of the game. And I don't think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
2 quick points. One is the whole precedent issue. So if you let him in, what could be more egregious than this in terms of the four corners of baseball? This is not something where, it was his own private life, and he drank a lot. He, got involved in all kind of domestic stuff off the field. This went to the heart of the game, actually. And it's even more egregious when he was a manager than a player because he controlled things.
Yep. Steve, that's a great point. Appreciate the call.
Thanks.
Steve's line will be open 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Do you believe Pete Rose deserves to at least be on the ballot, maybe? Allow people to vote.
I like what you were saying there about the best. And I think that if you're saying that this is the best the game has to offer, but the person also bet on games they were involved in, is that necessarily the best person?
Yeah,
is that?
Right.
And I do think that does play and should play into it, that it isn't always just about what happens on the field. I think that's part of the reaction. I come at this from a Denver Broncos fan, and the Broncos routinely getting shunned from the Football Hall of Fame because of where we are. If we were the New York Broncos, if we were the LA Broncos, it would be much different. If we were the Philadelphia Broncos, because of the population size and how the media culture works. But we've had some amazing players. You have Randy Gradishar, Carl Mecklenburg, people that are standouts on the field and off the field.
Did you hear Gradishar's speech, by the way?
Yeah.
Dude,
It's incredible.
He just reads right out of the book of Romans.
Yeah, he does. But again, just such good people. And the idea that, and then we look at the idea of, okay, Michael Vick had incredible talent, but was also incredibly flawed.
Yep.
So is that someone that goes into the Hall of Fame? And I think you can make an argument at times about Terrell Owens having phenomenal stats, but because of who they are as a player and what happened off the field, does that also create a detriment to that? What is your level of putting someone in the Hall of Fame? Because that should be someone to look up to. And I would argue that it's not only their performance off the field, but it is also their character on the field, but also the character off the field as well that does matter.
Yep,
Yeah.
I agree entirely with you. Would love to hear from you. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Some good comments here on the Pete Rose issue. What about Christian values and redemption? Why is there no second chance for Pete?
Well,
like it or not, he's one of the most famous players of all time.
Well, he can ask for redemption and have forgiveness. It doesn't mean he gets to get in the Hall of Fame. He can talk to our Lord and Savior about that, and he can be forgiven for what he did, but it doesn't mean he get in the Hall of Fame. It's no, I don't. I see that's the part of the thing where I disagree, because in theory, then, if we go off that principle in these type of situations, then in theory, there are no rules. And part of it being the idea of forgiveness and redemption, but, and oh God, do we really want to go this theological this morning? Okay. Part of that is that's a relationship between you and your Savior, not, and I disagree with, and we do this in my Catholic religion, I disagree with the idea of the priest giving you absolution, because I'm not certain it's their role. It should be something where
priesthood
you talk
of all
about,
believers.
I know that, but
some
but
Protestant
the role,
tendencies.
yeah,
there,
but the role being more about the relationship with God, and so the priest should be that conduit for your forgiveness, not necessarily. But again, I come from the religion that sold indulgences. So we had little pieces of paper you could pay for to pay off your sins. So I get it.
Pete could have paid off enough indulgences to get to the Hall of Fame.
That's exactly it. So I understand how this works. Yes.
Another comment online. I think Adam can pull it up. The Rose cost me money. He died at 83. The over-under was 85, and I had the over.
That is fantastic.
YouTube comment there. That was a great one.
Along.
Bill, we didn't get to this yesterday because it got a little heated.
Oh, yeah. It is time for everybody's favorite distraction. Yes, we have been left unsupervised. That means it's time for You Choose the News, everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, where we bring in Blake Olson from our newsroom and discuss all sorts of ridiculous stories about us humans. I have spent mere moments this morning going through the interwebs to find really dumb stories. Here, remarkably, it's so easy to do. And then give them even more ridiculous headlines. Why? Because nobody in charge has any idea that we waste time doing this. It is all about fun, being silly, and examining why we can't have nice things. Oh, boy, do we have some for you today, gentlemen. All righty. Jeff Hunt, Blake Olson in the newsroom. Here are your choices. Headline number 1, leading with bad decisions. Headline number 2, taking matters into his own hands. Headline number 3, trendy investment. And headline number 4, Beard gets candidates in trouble. Your
Let's
choice.
start with trendy investments.
Yeah, this is a so trendy investment. You might have remembered the glory days of cryptocurrency exchange, FTX. Yeah, it turns out that it was more trendy and more flaky than we had first found out. Coming from the co-founder, Gary Wang, in the ongoing trial of Wang's former business partner, Sam Bankman-Fried. Statements that Wang has made has testified that the currency exchange used a random number generator applied by the platform's daily volume and then divided by 1 billion to determine the amount of cash in the fund. What that means is they had no idea what the number was. Right. Yes. On a daily basis, they had no clue how much money they had, nor did they track it, because evidently that's how you run a cryptocurrency business. While he was testifying, he confirmed the displayed numbers that he was looking at didn't even match the real numbers that were in the database. And the real insurance fund balance was, in fact, much lower than what they showcased the public, because they just randomly made it up. And no one bothered to check. Yeah, exactly. Nicely done, guys.
There's an old saying that if the guy's shining your shoes or giving you stock tips, it's time to get out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Like, and that's kind of what you ran
exactly.
into with those guys, right? If
Oh, yeah.
everyone's buying it.
Yes. And I loved all the celebrity endorsers. This is the greatest, best thing is you have no idea what you're talking about.
Right, exactly.
You have no clue.
Was that Tom Brady? Was that
Oh,
the
yeah,
guy?
Tom Brady was one of them. Yeah, there were a series of them. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Hunt, leading with bad decisions, taking matters into his own hands, or Beard gets candidate in trouble?
I think it's Blake's.
Oh, it's Blake's. It's right. Yeah, Blake, your choice.
You led with a bad decision.
Yeah,
I'll
leading
go
with a
that
bad
one.
decision. Here we are going to lovely old England and going to be covering Boris Johnson. He has released a new memoir. It's going to be published next month, and there are some shockingly bad decisions inside that he admits to. One of them, his plan to invade the Netherlands. Yes, he wanted to invade an ally and a NATO country during 2020 because he wanted the COVID vaccine. He legitimately has admitted that he approached his advisors saying, I think all those vaccines were made in England or belong to us for some weird reason. He was fomenting a plan to take them by water. He was going to have ships dock outside of the Netherlands. They're going to break into a warehouse and steal all the vaccines because I'm sure that'll go over well.
Well, they can only be defended on their bikes.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
maybe it's
the funny thing is
to take advantage.
He did say that eventually the advisors did tell him effectively invading a NATO ally would be nuts, and he backed away from that. Yeah,
good for him.
Exactly.
He's so smart.
If it wasn't the people elsewhere in the room, he would have invaded the Netherlands.
What was that great boat thing? Dunkirk?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the reverse of Dunkirk.
Yeah, it is.
Instead of pulling all your...
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And the fun part about it is he wants to be prime minister again, too. So that's
awesome.
fantastic. Yeah. Also, okay, final choice this morning, Mr. Hunt. Taking matters into his own hands or Beard gets candidate in trouble?
Beard.
Yeah, Beard is getting a candidate in trouble, specifically the beard of Mr. Derek Anderson. He is a candidate running for Virginia's 7th congressional district. He is clean-shaven, and he's also not married, despite the fact that he's appearing in campaign publishes with a woman and 3 young girls. He's in both videos and pictures of him being very, very family. However, those people aren't his family. They belong to
a family.
They belong to a longtime friend. It's a friend's family that he just borrowed to put into pictures, as if nobody would notice, despite the fact that he announced recently he just got engaged, which I guess the fake wife is very concerned about.
Yeah, I would be too.
What the hell, people? Oh, that's it. That is the end of You Choose the
Renta
News.
family. All right.
Yeah,
Heidi Canal is going to join us in the 7 o'clock hour. She's doing some digging. We got some questions for her, so you're not going to want to miss it. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KN.
It is 7 a.m. on this Tuesday, October 1st. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You woke up in the greatest country in history. And we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, not the gold standard, bit of fool's gold. Heidi Ganal finds areas of election concern which must be addressed before November 5th. I'm going to ask Heidi all about this as she joins us via Zoom in just a few minutes, so you want to stick around for that. Let's check in first on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Thanks, Jeff and Billy. 42 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 77 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story: Western North Carolina and East Tennessee are reeling from the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Officials in Tennessee say more than 100 people remain unaccounted for. Asheville, North Carolina is reporting at least 40 people killed, with the overall toll now around 130 across the Southeast. Former President Trump in North Carolina and talked about the devastation on Monday.
As you know, our country is in the final weeks of a hard-fought national election. But in a time like this, when a crisis hits, when our fellow citizens cry out in need, none of that matters. We're not talking about politics now. We have to all get together and get this solved. We need a lot of help. They have to have a lot of help down here. We look out for one another. We pull together. We pitch in. We persevere, and we pull it through.
Kamala Khan read a statement about the destruction, and then time to answer some questions from reporters. Yeah, that's not going to happen. That's basically a daily occurrence. But she said she had time to talk snacks with former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson on their podcast.
One of my guilty pleasures, especially when I'm on the road, are my Doritos.
Oh, what flavor?
Nacho. Old school, original.
OG,
Come on.
Yeah. OG.
Come on.
Red bag.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's exactly. Got to have a napkin nearby.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And her good buddy Biden, President Biden, at the White House, and he was pressed on why he wasn't in North Carolina. Here's the video and the audio that Jeff was talking about. He started to walk out of the room, and he stopped at the door.
On the hurricane, Mr. President, why weren't you and Vice President Harris here in Washington commanding this weekend?
I was commanding. I was on the phone for at least 2 hours yesterday and the day before as well. I commanded. It's called a telephone.
Is it
all my security people?
Is it not important for the country to see?
And he shut the door on him. A strike by dock workers at 14 ports across the country could end up costing the U.S. economy billions of dollars a day. This after talks stalled between the U.S. Maritime Alliance and the International Longshoremen's Association, which represents 45,000 port workers. The White House hopes for a short strike, but President Biden has said he won't intervene. The vice presidential candidates will be in the spotlight tonight. There will be no audience when the Democrat, Tim Walz, and the Republican, J.D. Vance, take the debate stage at 7 o'clock tonight on KNUS. CBS News anchor Norah O'Donnell and Face the Nation host Margaret Brennan will be the moderators in charge of making Vance look as bad as possible. A suspect in custody in connection with the stabbing of a woman last month in Loveland, 48-year-old Charles Wally has been charged with second-degree assault on the attack, which happened on September 23rd in an alley behind Pier Connect, a needle exchange facility. The woman suffered serious injuries, but is expected to make a full recovery. Police say that Wally and the victim are known to each other.
The banishment for life of Pete Rose from baseball is the sad end of a sorry episode. One of the game's greatest players has engaged in a variety of acts which have stained the game.
That's the former baseball commissioner a long time ago, Bart Giamatti. The all-time Major League Baseball career hits leader has died. Pete Rose played in the majors for nearly a quarter century and racked up more than 4,200 hits. The 7-time All-Star and 3-time World Series champion passed away Monday at his home in Las Vegas. He was 83, but most people will remember this.
2-1 pitch from Schaus into left center. There it is. Rose has eclipsed Cobb. That's number 4,192.
Charlie Hustle passes away, and former Denver Nugget Dikembe Mutombo as well on Monday at the age of 58 with brain cancer. It's 40 in Lone Tree, 41 in Aurora, 42 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue Tuesday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Sunny and warm. Temperatures will be comfortable in the mid to upper 70s today, 40s and low 50s tonight. Quite hot for October, mid to upper 80s on Wednesday, cooling to near 80 Thursday, low 80s for Friday. Temperatures will be quite warm, deep into the 80s for the weekend. Nights will be 40s and 50s, and there's no precipitation in the forecast through the work week and through the weekend. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, you know her. She's a friend of the show, and she's fighting to reclaim Colorado's great Western values. Heidi Canal, she's the founder of Rocky Mountain Voice. And Heidi's been looking into, some of this election issues around 2022. And she has some concerns that she wants to make sure that the Secretary of State and others address before November 5th. She joins us via Zoom. Good morning, Heidi. Thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Well, good morning, guys. Happy to be here.
So tell the folks what you found.
Well, Jeff, after the election in 22, I scratched my head a little bit. The numbers were kind of wonky, especially in Highlands Ranch, where Kurt Huffman lost an R+10 district. That means the Republicans should have won by 10 points. This is red Douglas County. And Kurt lost his race, and he ran a good race. And so Kurt and I talked, and we decided, well, maybe you should do a recount, ask for a recount in your district. Well, you have to ask for the whole county because they can't sort votes by district. So Kurt went ahead with that, and they did everything they possibly could to stop that from happening. Essentially, Jenna Griswold did with a letter, a strong-worded letter to the county clerk, who was a Republican, to not let us operate the recount the way we wanted to. So that put up some red flags for me. And so I hired an election attorney and just said, hey, can we dig in or find another way to do this? So we went through the Freedom of Information Act, or CORA, and we asked for access to the paper ballots. And it took about a year and a half to finally get access. At first, they wanted $200,000, and then they negotiated down. And we as citizens should have a right to see these, so without paying $200,000. So we finally were able to bring in some scanners of our own in April of this year and do a really big project. We scanned 85,000 of the paper ballots out of the 190,000. But during the process, we asked for a lot of documentation and different information and did some other analysis and came up with some really interesting findings that are part of the press conference that I did the other day. And we've got a lot more coming, but this is the tip of the iceberg. And I think some of the most important content that we discovered.
Yeah, so let's dive into what you discovered. Particularly, well, let's start first with wireless devices on the, is it the voting machines or the voting county machines, or talk to us about the wireless devices.
So we call them the voting systems, And I want to read you a quote from Jenna Griswold. This is December 15th, 2020, at the Legislative Audit Committee hearing on election integrity. Jenna says voting systems are never connected to and cannot be accessed through the internet because Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capability are stripped from the unit before use, and all other connective technology is disabled by the trusted build. They are stripped of any connective technology. That is a lie, Jeff. We discovered through looking at purchase orders from the equipment that they brought into Douglas County and asking Douglas County point blank if these cards existed in the voting systems, and they said yes, they did, but they were turned off. And there's a big argument about what turned off means, but essentially the way technology works today, if that card is in there, it's very, 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 very difficult to turn it off, even if you turn it off like at the little toggle on your machine. That doesn't really work.
So you're asking now the state legislature to step in and to ensure that these voting systems are actually stripped of their wireless devices. Is that correct?
Well, we're actually asking Jenna Griswold publicly to explain herself and talk to us about why the cards are in there, why we need them in there. We don't need them in there. There's plenty of other ways to transfer the information in the voting system process. So what I'd like to know is, Jenna, why did you lie to us? And I have other quotes from other public officials saying the same thing, a couple of county clerk's offices and even our own Wayne Williams. So I would suggest first she comes out and tells us why she lied about this. Second, why they exist, why the machines are ordered with the Wi-Fi remote access cards in them, and why they haven't removed them. It would literally take a tech person about 30 minutes to take out this little card, and there would be no question. And Jeff, this isn't about past elections. This is about restoring trust in the voters of Colorado and fixing a potential problem that could be catastrophic to our election.
Now, Heidi Ganol, I've raised this point too about Douglas County because when I worked for the Romney campaign, we won it by 20 points. And then you barely win it by 1 percentage points. And then Kurt Huffman, as you pointed out, doesn't win. So you have essentially a 20-point swing in a decade in Douglas County. Heidi, could it just be that the voters don't want conservatives in office anymore, have embraced a progressive agenda, and you're just pursuing this out of conspiracy theories?
Well, I would suggest we just look at the facts. The facts are that Jenna Griswold lied about the machines or the voting systems and Wi-Fi remote access, and there's no reason for those cards to be in there. That's what fuels conspiracy theories. What fuels conspiracy theories is the fact that our Secretary of State lied about it and that there are cards in there that provide for remote access and allow for vulnerabilities in the system. So take them out. It's that simple. Take them out. You have about 30 in a few days until the election. Just take them out of any machines in Colorado that have them in there.
Now, the Douglas County clerk, I believe, is a Republican. Can she do it?
Sherry Davis has been wonderful through this process. She's been very open and accommodating. So has her staff. I don't think this is something that she knew about or the staff necessarily knew about. You'd have to ask them. But what I believe is happening is the trusted build happens through the state, and they actually referred us back to the state and said, you've got to talk to the Secretary of State about this. That, basically there's very strict protocols about who can open the machines or, tamper or not tamper, but open them up and take a card out if we were going to do that. So you've got to essentially go through the Secretary of State, and they're not responding.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Jenna Griswold's not responding at all. I mean, she's no word from her, no word from the people that work at the Secretary of State's office as to maybe from their perspective why this shouldn't happen.
Nope, not a word. And we did the press conference and had several liberal media outlets there who decided not to cover it after taping the whole thing and listening to what we had to say, which isn't shocking to me. But shoot, Jeff, this is a pretty big deal, and you'd think that they would want to address the problem. What if this was reversed and Republicans were running the state and this happened? Can you imagine the outrage?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think part of the challenge we face, though, as conservatives is we were promised a lot, right? Like, we're going to unleash the Kraken and expose all this fraud that happened in 2020. So there's a little bit of a boy cries wolf challenge that conservatives have when you rightfully try to point out challenges, right? And errors and things that should be corrected so that we can trust our elections. They go back to 2020 and go, well, you guys said, there were servers in Germany and China was involved and all this stuff. And so it becomes a challenge for conservatives. I want to ask you about some of the other things that you found with regards to the drop boxes.
Yeah, just a couple other things. One is the drop boxes are not as secure as they like to make it seem. They have video cameras on the drop boxes that are outside the buildings, but they are typically low resolution, which is not admissible in court, and typically aren't pointed in a way that you can actually see what's going on and capture any bad behavior. And then they have thousands of hours of video footage from the election that typically is not, they don't usually do a whole lot with it. They don't sit and review it and see if anything bad happened. So what we need to do is get higher resolution cameras that are pointed in a way that we can see what's happening, full, open, honest transparency, and live stream it on their websites, perhaps, let the public see what's going on, and then make it easy to report anything that you do see that doesn't seem right. Now, citizens are allowed to, anyone's allowed to put 10 ballots in each drop box or a drop box. That's one time. They can't do it over and over again, and they can't put more than 10 ballots in the drop box. So the Secretary of State's office is not looking at the law and look at protecting us from people who break the law, potentially break the law. So what we're doing is helping teach citizens how to monitor these drop boxes if they want to do it on their own, which is their First Amendment right.
Yeah, I remember asking Wayne Williams one time, I said, yeah, so in this state, you can drop off 10 ballots. How do you know somebody doesn't drop off 11? And he's like, Jeff, we just don't know. We really don't know. And I'm like, well, okay. So if you don't know if someone can drop off 11, you don't know if they're dropping off 25 or 50 or 100 or anything like that, right? We really essentially have no idea. I think you're exactly right. We're talking with Heidi Ganal. She's the founder of Rocky Mountain Voice, and she's raising some of these concerns. Have you heard from Jenna Griswold on this?
No, we haven't. And we're trying to get in touch with the postmaster and see if we can at least set a meeting there or the local one in Douglas County. But we haven't been successful yet in doing so. So again, this is about rebuilding trust in our voting systems. And when we find things that cause us angst or say, oh, that's a vulnerability, that's something that needs to be fixed, let's fix it so that people can trust the elections again, because 25% of Republicans did not vote in Colorado in the 22 election. That's a problem. That's a huge problem for us. And we're not going to win statewide elections until we fix that problem. And part of the problem is a lot of voters do not trust that their vote matters.
So I understand that voters have concerns about election integrity. And as you mentioned, some are sticking it out. But it seems like after what some conservatives did in 2020, elected officials have a lack of trust in conservatives raising concerns that that there may be problems, because isn't this all just conspiracy? Isn't this all just made up stuff? I mean, look at what Fox has gone through with their lawsuit, other media companies, defamation lawsuits. How do we restore trust, I guess, in culture and society's concerns that conservatives can raise these ideas, and we're not engaging in defamation, we're not engaging in conspiracy theories? How do we build trust there, you think?
Well, it is scary, Jeff. You know, if you look at my Twitter feed this morning or last night, it's fraught with disaster. People are just going crazy on the idea that I would expose this. And I would ask, why wouldn't I? Like, why don't we want our elections to be the true gold standard? And at the end of the day, I'm not talking about what happened in the past. I'm talking about the future and how we can prevent bad actors from doing things to decrease our trust even more. So I believe in being honest and open and providing sunshine on things that matter to the public. And that's more important to me than being called names or, getting accused of being a conspiracy theorist. The true conspiracy theory that's being pushed is that we have a gold standard and that we do not have Wi-Fi remote access in our voting systems, and that the post office is doing everything right with the undeliverable ballots, and that the drop boxes are secure. That's not accurate according to our findings. So let's fix it. It's not hard.
Heidi Ganal, founder of Rocky Mountain Voice, joining Jeff and Bill live. I've got some questions for you on the idea of the drop boxes. Were you able to uncover any votes that you have been able to determine that it was not the expressed will of the person casting that vote based on ballot drop boxes? What I'm looking for is the fraud.
Yeah, we did not analyze that. What we analyzed was, what are the security measures to secure our drop boxes? And we had to stop there. We don't have a lot of resources. This is a ragtag team of volunteers and folks that care about restoring trust in our elections. So I hope somebody will investigate that.
Inside, did you find anything in the 85,000 documents? Would that show any fraud that existed inside of the election?
We definitely found some things that are raising some eyebrows, but we're not quite ready to talk about that. It's a very long, expensive process to analyze those images, and we're still right in the middle of it.
Okay, that is good. This is the question I've got. I understand the concern about the drop box, but I can't figure out where the fraud comes in if someone drops off 3 ballots or 8 ballots or 10 or 25 or 50. Unless we can prove those ballots are fraudulent, I fail to see the harm. I understand the concern, but it would seem like you might be concerned about something that may not be happening.
That's true, Bill. It may not be happening, but it may be happening, and we just don't know. And the law in Colorado is that you are legally not allowed to put more than 10 ballots into a ballot box. So Democrats don't care about election integrity or us following the law unless they decide to secure these drop boxes. It's just about caring about law and order and making sure that people follow the law.
Yeah, I understand that, but it seems to me that it's much ado about nothing, because the assumption is that there's fraud taking place in the ballot boxes, the drop-offs, and the 2,000 Mules, which, again, a movie that had been pulled, and a movie in which Dinesh D'Souza on this radio station admitted in that movie he can't point to a single fraudulently cast ballot. I'm just worried about this being a focus on something that doesn't necessarily lead to fraud. It hasn't been shown to lead to fraud, and we haven't seen widespread mail fraud for decades in this country based on national elections. But let's go into those wireless devices. And recently you were talking about...
Hold on, can I talk about that?
Please.
I mean, the idea too, so yes, we have ballot harvesting in Colorado, but not at the extent that it could be, right? So the lawmakers said, we're going to cap you at 10. You can't run over to a old folks home and just walk the premises, grab 500 ballots, show up and drop them off. Because I think there's some concerns about the nature of election integrity if you're doing that, right? So
I'm not certain about that, because the idea is hang on, this is the reason. We are making this assumption based on a large number of ballots that fraud happens. That's a weird thing, because fraud would have to happen individually on the ballot. So
I'm not disagreeing with that.
But what I'm saying is this, is that if the issue is that we're concerned that people are showing up at the old folks home, and it's always the old folks home, that someone's showing up at the old folks home and voting for them, they could do that with 1 person, with 2 people, with 10 people, with 25 people. They could send enough people to that old folks home and have them only collect 5 ballots each, and I'll take them over to the drop box and I'll drop them in. We haven't prevented. I know, but hang on. But we have not prevented the fraud. We're arbitrarily deciding on this number, and that's what I'm concerned about. Is it seems more arbitrary than actually focused on trying to prevent fraudulent votes.
But if somebody showed up with 10,000 ballots, like one person showed up with 10,000 ballots, granted, it's not absolutely clear that fraud was utilized in collecting those 10,000 ballots. But I think lawmakers are right to go, I'm not sure that it provides strong election integrity if one person can show up with 10,000 ballots. So they made the law 10.
Yeah, which is arbitrary. I understand.
And
That's
you
fair.
could say that it's arbitrary, but
no, it
that
is.
is the law.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it can be arbitrary and be the law as well. But the law had to pick a line. They decided 10.
10.
They could have decided anything else. And that's the only
And
reason
we
I'm
have
saying
no
it's arbitrary.
idea if we're enforcing it. I think that's
Yeah.
what Heidi's
And
saying.
Bill,
Heidi, I'll give you the word on that.
Yeah, why does somebody need to turn in more than 10 ballots into a ballot box? Tell me the logic there. Like, what would the scenario be?
Maybe you're collecting them for your neighbors in an apartment building. Maybe it's in a condo complex. Maybe you're doing it and running through a neighborhood, or even, as Jeff showed, going through something like a nursing home or assisted care facility. And maybe that's what they're doing, is they're collecting them inside of an assisted care facility or nursing home and then dropping them off. Again, the issue is the assumption of fraud. You're going to have to show me it exists before I'm going to get on board with the idea of too many people dropping off too many ballots is fraud. You're going to have to show me. And that's the problem that I have is we haven't been able to show massive mail ballot fraud in this country for years. And Heritage Foundation did a very, very extensive study on this and found it to be minimal. I mean, less than 0.5%, I believe.
So, Bill, part of the problem is that voters' perception is our reality as leaders in politics in Colorado. And if there's a good portion of the voters in Colorado who are feel insecure or not confident about our elections, wouldn't we want to restore that trust and make sure that every voter feels confident that their vote matters? And if it's as simple as swapping out some cameras to be high definition instead of low definition, or aiming them the right way, or streaming on the website, or just reviewing the video, that's their job. That's why, I mean, that's what the county clerk's offices are supposed to do, is to make sure that our elections are safe and secure, and perception is their reality. And right now, I believe one of the most important things we can do is restore trust in the people about their vote. And this is just one simple way to do it. Just upgrade the cameras, point them in the right direction, live stream it on the website, and review the video footage. It's not difficult. And I mean, we have high quality video webcams throughout all the camp bow wows across the country. The doggy daycares have incredibly sophisticated webcam systems. It's really easy to do, and it would restore a lot of trust in the people's confidence in their vote.
Yeah,
so I don't.
I understand the case, and I get that it is a very low bar. And if this would make people feel comfortable, I've got no problem with going ahead and doing it. But I think, and part of that, what you're talking about, is the perception equaling reality. I don't necessarily agree that lawmakers should always be bent based on the perceptions of the electorate. And this is
I agree, Bill. But this is important.
But this is a ridiculous example.
Really important.
Yes and no, because we haven't seen fraud come from here. And all we're doing is we're trying to make people feel better about it. And the issue being, if we had a large portion of the electorate come out and say they think that Bigfoot is coming down from the mountains and stealing their babies at night, and we have to set up Bigfoot security fences and Bigfoot cameras, we'd probably talk to them about why Bigfoot's not doing that. We wouldn't lean into a behavior change in order to make them feel more comfortable. This is a very low bar. But what I'm saying is it's a low bar based on something that isn't happening. And if it's going to make you feel better, fine. But it's not going to have the necessary impact that people think it is going to have. That's basically it. I mean, fine, if you want to do it, right ahead, but fine.
Again, Bill, this is about keeping people from breaking the law. And we use cameras to stop people from speeding and running red lights. So we already have these cameras in place. Just make sure that they are high definition, submissible in court, and pointed in the right direction. It's not complicated. And I think a lot of experts around the country would disagree with your take on has there been fraud, or is there the potential fraud at the drop boxes. So why not just wipe that concern away, or make people feel better with a simple adjustment to the cameras? That's all we're asking. And it's not complicated to do.
No, I agree. I agree it's a low bar, but Heritage Foundation did an extensive study, probably the deepest study that we've seen over the course of decades, and hasn't found.
So wait, Bill, now
fraud.
people like the Heritage Foundation, like they've been just hammering them for the 2025 project, and now we're referring to the Heritage Foundation for our election integrity. That's comical.
I don't see why it's funny, but okay. Let's go on to the wireless devices. Now, what is your concern about the wireless devices and how they're handled inside the system?
So you're not concerned at all that someone might try and do nefarious things if they had access to our voting systems?
No, that's not what I said. I asked you about what your concern is about the Wi-Fi systems in the machines.
Are you concerned that our voting systems could be hacked or somebody could get in and mess with our vote at all?
Based on the current protocols and how the system is handled, no, I'm not, because it is against Colorado law to have any of those wireless devices active inside of the machine. If you're worried about enforcing the law, but I know, Heidi, but you're worried about the law. I mean, but you don't have anything showing that the law has been broken. You're assuming a crime has taken place, and we have nothing showing that it has. And it is against the law to have any of those systems active. Not the purchase, not to have them in the machine.
Do you trust
but to have them?
You trust the politicians that they know how to keep our voting system secure and prevented from being hacked. So why did Jenna Griswold lie?
It's not the.
So
it's
why
not
did she lie to us?
Heidi, it's not the politicians in this role. That person that is in the role is the county clerk. The county clerk is the person that runs that.
Not a politician?
Wait, hang on a sec. The county clerk is the person that is in charge of the system, and inside of things like the trusted build, the thing that Tina Peters didn't test and didn't like, that BIOS update turns off the Wi-Fi system and makes it inaccurate, makes it inert every single time. So even if someone had gone in there and turned it on, it would have been turned off during the trusted build post-election. There also is an audit that happens, and I believe most counties in Colorado already have either removed it or have it permanently turned off. The issue is
that's not accurate, Bill.
Well, yeah, it is. That's information
I'm
I was
sorry.
given.
I've just spent 2 years researching this. It's not accurate, and the BIOS can be adjusted so that there are nefarious things that can happen.
It
so
can
again,
be, but have you shown any? Have you shown
system.
any of the trusted builds turning it on? So far, we have nothing showing that. You're making
but
assumptions that don't exist.
But we're jumping, guys. I want to go back to the fact that
Jenna
Griswold, hold on. Jenna Griswold said they're stripped, and Heidi Ganahl has evidence they're not stripped.
Bingo.
It depends on how you're using the word stripped. If they are stripped of the capabilities, they could still be inside the machine.
It's not difficult, Bill. It's take out the card. It's really simple.
But
and actually, our technology experts said it can be done in just a few minutes. It's not hard.
But it is hard because you have to have certain access and certain people in the room at the time. It's not just having the IT guy show up at your desk.
Make one phone call and
at
get
your
it done.
desk at your desk. But even if they pulled them out there right now, though, the law is that they're inert, and 52 counties have all of their Wi-Fi components removed. That they're not there. They've already done exactly what you're asking for.
Where'd you get that number?
Enough. Matt Crane.
Where'd you get that number?
Matt Crane.
So Matt Crane says that 52 of the 64 counties do not have these Wi-Fi remote access cards in them.
Have moved to Wi-Fi free components. That is the quote.
Okay. Well, I have not heard from Matt Crane, and I haven't heard from the Secretary of State. What we did is research Douglas County, and the Douglas County machines do have remote Wi-Fi access cards in them, and that's a problem because we've watched the public get so become so worried about this, the internet access to the voting system. So why not just remove it? And why did Jenna Griswold lie to us about that?
Why did the public become concerned about it?
Why did she lie, Bill?
No, Heidi, why did the public become concerned about this? What's the reason everybody's worried about it? Because we had a presidential candidate wandering around telling everybody the vote was stolen. That's why.
You think that not the fact that it can connect to the internet, but because Donald Trump talked about it, that's why people are concerned?
Not talked about it, said it happened. That's different.
But Bill, you're not worried about Jenna Griswold lying about this? Our Secretary of State lied to the public about them being stripped out of the machines. And if you do the math, that means there's still 12 counties that have these in them. That's not okay.
Here's the thing. What I saw and what I saw and heard from Jenna Griswold's statement was a politician's statement that you can bend what happened to make sure that is actually true. If she says they can't connect to the internet and the component is in there and it has become inert, it can't connect to the internet.
That's not what she said. That's not what she said.
Hang on,
she said that,
Heidi, that is part of the statement in case they're in. I agree with you that she played politics and wasn't entirely accurate. I'm not certain that I get to the degree of you saying lie, but I'm not a fan of hers and I don't care. If you want to say lie, fine.
No.
I don't care. Again, I don't care. I don't think that is the biggest issue inside of this conversation. The bigger issue is the things that we say are potential problems that aren't necessarily problems. That's where I'm getting into this, is the idea that we have made assumptions based on drop boxes that we don't see fraud. And we have made assumptions based on these components being inside of the machines in which state law already says they can't be turned on. The updated build already says they're not turned on. And they verified in many cases they haven't been turned on. And all the audits that have gone back and looked at it said the vote has been solid. So again, I feel like this is just another case of crying wolf. And the reason that people don't have trust in the election and don't have trust in election integrity is because they were lied to over the fact that
Yes, we were lied to by Jenna Griswold. That's why we don't trust the voting systems in Colorado. She said that they are stripped from the unit.
And again, I'm not going to argue with it. Again, I don't care about her statement, etc. But Fox News paid almost $780 million, not because Jenna Griswold lied, because a whole bunch of other people lied about a stolen election and lied about things that didn't happen. And now people are worried about a process without any proof of it actually happening.
But do you think, Bill,
that's fine.
Do you think that's tainting you? Because Heidi's not claiming there was fraud. She is looking at the upcoming election and saying there are things that if we want to follow law, we should do in order to secure the upcoming election. That's all she's saying. There's nothing in here, and she has never said that it was rigged in 2020 or 2022. But if we're going to be a nation of laws that wants to follow these laws, then here's a handful of things. One, and these aren't complicated, strip out the Wi-Fi, and two, make sure that the cameras are good on the drop boxes.
But when those machines are certified, part of the certification is to turn off the Wi-Fi and to verify it's not off. Because again, it has to take a positive.
Bill, that's not accurate, and I can send you information about that. That's not accurate.
The devices are tested and they have to be certified, but in order to go forward, and they have to certify they're not connected to the internet. That's part of my understanding as far as the process. Also, Jenna Griswold said that the devices couldn't connect to the internet. If they are disabled, if no one takes the affirmative action in order to connect them to the network,
she said that Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capability are stripped from the unit before use, and all other connective technology is disabled by the trusted bill. Stripped from the unit, and 12 counties in Colorado
that as well.
have these Wi-Fi remote access cards in them.
I understand that.
That
And
is
again,
not
that's
accurate.
fine. That's fine. On that piece is not accurate, but disabled also would cover that.
I don't know.
believe that she's paying fast and loose.
I don't think that
this is a
would
big
be
deal.
stripped and disabled are different, in my opinion.
It still does, but it still means it can't access the internet.
So
same thing.
We got to wrap here. Heidi, you've been great. Tell us.
Thank you.
Tell us where you expect this to go.
So we're going to keep asking for answers from our Secretary of State and the Post Office, and try and restore trust with our voters in Colorado and address these issues so that they can trust that their vote matters. That's the most important thing to me right now.
Heidi Ganal, founder of Rocky Mountain Voice. I sure appreciate the work that you're doing to look into this, because the truth is the average citizen doesn't have this capability.
Yeah, and I'm really curious about what else you found, because I think whatever you're coming up with next is going to be the bigger splash. I'm not discounting what you're saying here, and I'm okay with the choices that you're making and what you want to say happen, and I'm okay with the drop boxes, and I appreciate the time. But I'm really looking forward to what you've got next. I think that could be bigger.
But look, where we are in our elections right now, the average person has no recourse. You run up against these massive bureaucratic operations that want to charge you $200,000 because you want to look into the election to make sure that it was right. And very few people can step up to the plate the way Heidi Ganal has. And Heidi, I, for one, absolutely appreciate it. Thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thanks, guys. And sorry, Bill, for having a rough go around.
Hey,
I
no
still
worries.
love you.
I love you too. That's the thing is we're still friends. We can still hang out and be nice to each other. We disagree on this issue, and it's a small issue, and it's fine. But I love you to death, and I sure appreciate the work you're doing. And honestly, I am waiting with bated breath to figure out what you've got next, because the fact you scanned all those documents, I want to see what you found. I'm super curious, and I can't wait for you to come back and let us know what you find.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All
Have a
right.
great day.
Heidi Ganal with Rocky Mountain Voice. By the way, join Rocky Mountain Voice at RockyMountainVoice.com. They do op-ed publishing, regular emails, great news coverage.
They do.
You can
really,
cover them
really
at
strong,
RockyMountainVoice.com.
Really strong news. Really good, solid conservative voice. And she's doing a great job. And yeah, we disagreed on some stuff, but we're still friends. And honestly, I think the next thing coming up is going to be bigger. Just based on what she teased us with. I think she may have something that could be very significant. And I'm hoping for that one. This one, to me, seems small potatoes, but that's okay. I understand her concerns, though, and that's fair.
All right. Look, you don't have to keep living with that joint pain. Real lasting relief is possible with help from QC Kinetics. People here are getting their lives back, getting their mobility back thanks to QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in cellular therapies that can revitalize your joints. I'm talking about advanced regenerative medicine using your own body's healing properties, highly concentrated and carefully placed in your achy joints. Back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain. These are cutting-edge treatments that require no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. It's a quick in-office procedure that can get you moving again. These protocols have been developed by medical professionals under the leadership of Dr. Mitchell Scheinkamp, a former orthopedic surgeon and a pioneer in clinical regenerative medicine. Listen, is arthritic pain keeping you from doing the things you love? Pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder? You owe it to yourself to learn more. Call QC Kinetics today for a free consultation. That's 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986, with locations in Aurora, Superior, Highlands Ranch, and Colorado Springs. What do you think of what Heidi presented? I'd love to hear from you. Denver Post not covering, Channel 9 not covering. Is this a liberal media establishment continuing to cover up cracks and problems in, quote, the gold standard, and we need to get this fixed? Or conservatives just crying wolf on election integrity issues all over again? 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text the show on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Awayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
8 migrants have been arrested after police say they were taking advantage of a Tennessee community that was ravaged by Hurricane Helene by going in and looting whatever they could find. All 8 of the men were arrested and given a $20,000 bond. They are being charged with burglary and aggravated burglary. On Monday, First Judicial District Attorney General Stephen Finney said he was, quote, deeply troubled by their actions, and he will prosecute any person charged with looting, theft, or any other crime related to this disaster to the fullest extent possible. Michael Humphreys, the port director for Nogales, Arizona, is saying they've seized another 1.5 million fentanyl pills at the port of entry during a 3-day period. On September 11th, about 25,000 fentanyl pills, 2.65 pounds of fentanyl powder, and 102 pounds of meth were found throughout a car. The next day, almost 500,000 fentanyl pills were found after they were hidden in a car. And on September 15th, more than 1 million fentanyl pills were found after they were hidden throughout a vehicle. Texas Governor Greg Abbott is honoring the victims of the October 7th terror attacks that were carried out on Israel. The governor is asking Texans to join him in a moment of silence for the people of Israel and the 7 Americans still held hostage, saying Texas will always stand with Israel.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Just wrapped up an interview with Heidi Ganahl. She's got an article in Rocky Mountain Voice, not the gold standard, but a fool's gold. Heidi Ganahl finds areas of election concern which must be addressed before November 5th. The big one being in Douglas County, the voting systems there are shipped out with Wi-Fi capabilities, and Jenna Griswold said that Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities are stripped from the unit before use, and all other connective technology is disabled by the trusted build. Heidi wants to make sure they are actually taken out and that the Secretary of State can do this. She also wants better monitoring for the ballot drop boxes. Text messages are, as you can imagine, all over on this one. Suzanne, she wants to spend taxpayer money that isn't warranted. She and 3 of her friends are terrified over nothing. Fran, why is reviewing an election process and asking common sense questions outrageous? I don't trust Democrats. They don't trust my side. So open all the machines and hand recount the ballots.
They did that though. They did. They have over 250 audits across the country, including several inside of Colorado, some including hand counts, and all of them have backed up the results of the election. Even the cyber ninjas. I mean, there was one here in Colorado where they hand counted every ballot, and they were accurate in the machines. And that's the thing, is it's this assumption of the fraud taking place. And because even though we've had 250 audits across the country over the 2020 election, looking at all the ballots, and every one of them have backed up the results, we still get people saying, how come we don't go back and count the ballots? The election is audited in every county across the nation post-election. Every county.
Sort of audited. All right, something to look into. This is from Doug. Disabled isn't the same as being stripped out. In several instances, it will still collect information. It just won't send it out. Also, I feel these investigations aren't about if it happened, but could it happen? I'm all in favor of constant checking and investigating to secure future elections, no matter how obscure the possibility. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Andrew, Denver, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Andrew.
Hey, good morning, guys. How you doing?
Great. What's
Doing
up?
Good. Well, I just wanted to call. I think this is a joke. I think it's actually dangerous. Republicans have continued to do this since Donald Trump tried to steal the election. If they cared so much about law and order and not breaking laws, when Donald Trump was convicted of breaking a law, all you said, oh, everybody breaks that law. It's no big deal. And when it comes to going 1 over, or 5 over, or 50 over on 10 ballots, it's potential election fraud, which they cannot prove. This is just, it's laughable to me, but it's scary because what she's trying to do is not restore trust, but erode trust in our election system. And it's just sad to see her doing it. Republicans are losing because they have bad ideas the majority of people don't agree with. That's just a fact.
Andrew, do you think it's right for conservatives to have any concern about Jenna Griswold's leadership after she had a 9-0 smackdown from the U.S. Supreme Court on her effort to take Donald Trump off the ballot?
100%. I hate Jenna Griswold. I watched her in the 2016 when I was caucusing for Bernie, really tried to manipulate people into Hillary, so I don't trust her at all. But I trust her enough to know one person cannot manipulate our voting system. It's just not possible. And if they did have valid concerns, they've been to court. Fox has lost. Giuliani lost his license to practice law. Like, it doesn't work out for people. Jenna Griswold lost her ability. It's just like, you guys have fought it and you've lost. There's no fraud happening. Let it go. This is all about Trump trying to erode trust in our systems, and he continues to do it really well. Yes, there are valid reasons for concern. Once those concerns have been addressed, you should let it go instead of pushing the narrative that is just proven to be false again and again and again.
So help me understand how raising concerns about wireless devices inside of voting machines that Jenna Griswold says are stripped and going, well, no, they're right there. How that's relitigating the 2020, 2022 elections.
Because it's the same narrative. You're like Bill said, she's jumping to the conclusion that fraud is occurring because wireless devices exist in these machines.
But Jenna said they're stripped out.
Well, that's the same thing. That's what I'm saying. I'm a tech person. When I say Wi-Fi is stripped, that doesn't necessarily always mean the card has been physically removed. On a lot of these motherboards, it's physically soldered on. You can't just remove it that easily. But as Bill pointed out, when you update the BIOS and you disable the Wi-Fi, it's stripped. So it's a syntax difference. It doesn't bother me in the least.
It doesn't bother you that the voting machines can be accessible via the internet?
No, because they've tested them and proven they're not being manipulated. If there was evidence of that, I would be more concerned. But it doesn't exist. So I'm not going to make up like the boogeyman in my mind that no one thus far has been able to say is happening.
But it seems like that, I mean, Jenna Griswold is making a very clear statement that these cannot connect to the internet, that they're stripped.
Which is a fact. They cannot connect if it's disabled. That is a true statement.
But don't you think that they're concerned about hacking if they're making strong arguments that these voting machines can't be connected to the internet? They write, voting systems are never connected to and cannot be accessed through the internet because Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities are stripped from the unit before use and all other connective technologies disabled by the trusted build. So what I'm hearing you say...
I think that's a true statement. That is actually what is happening. So I think they are concerned and they're taking care of it.
But you said they can't be hacked.
I highly doubt it. It's such a low-level hack. Like, you would physically have to be on the machine or near it. Could they be hacked? Sure. Israel just blew up people with pagers. I mean, anything is possible.
That's a good point.
But I don't think it's that.
voting machines. Stay away from those this year.
Yeah, right.
That'll be the 2024. All right, we're up against a break. Andrew, thanks so much. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We'll continue this conversation into the next hour. Stick with us. We do have an open phone line, 303-696-1971. Heidi Ganal exposing some concerns about the upcoming election. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS, home of bad radio clock management.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, October 1st. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. We've got jam-packed phone lines. We'll get to you all in just a second. If you can't get through on the phone lines, text us on the Dan Kaplis Law text line, 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Continuing the conversation, we hosted Heidi Ganal in the 7 o'clock hour. She's got an article out in Rocky Mountain Voice titled, Not the Gold Standard, a Bit of Fool's Gold. Heidi Ganal finds areas of election concern which must be addressed before November 5th. And boy, oh boy, are there a lot of emotions wrapped up in this. Are we just crying wolf all over again, 2020, 2022? Or does Heidi have genuine concerns that those leading our elections should pick up on and fix? Love to hear from you. But first, let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Good morning, Jeff and Billy. It's 42 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 77 today. Going to be a beautiful day. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story
said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor.
Answer the question. He does it also, just like Kamala Khan. What was the question? I forgot. Tim Nowal's Just Ladder Factories will debate J.D. Vance tonight in the vice presidential debate. You can hear it right here on KNUS at 7 o'clock on 710 KNUS. There won't be an audience, and Nora O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan are getting pumped up right now to try to make Vance look as bad as Walz. We'll see if they can accomplish that. Heidi Ganal from Rocky Mountain Voice on with Jeff and Bill last hour. She's looking in to election integrity here in Colorado. She's discovered numerous problems with the system, including electronic voting machines. She'd like an explanation from Secretary of State Jenna Griswold.
I would suggest first she comes out and tells us why she lied about this. Second, why they exist, why the machines are ordered with the Wi-Fi remote access cards in them, and why they haven't removed them. It would literally take a tech person about 30 minutes to take out this little card, and there would be no question. And Jeff, this isn't about past elections. This is about restoring trust in the voters of Colorado and fixing a potential problem that could be catastrophic to our election.
Among other things, Ganal has found that drop boxes are not as secure as they'd like us to think they are. And 1 million people are without power in the southeast, and western North Carolina and East Tennessee are reeling from the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. You can see it from the air in a helicopter, of course. and it is devastating. Officials in Tennessee say more than 100 people remain unaccounted for. Asheville, North Carolina is reporting at least 40 people killed, with the overall toll now around 130 across the Southeast. President Biden is not there yet and did not like questions about the subject when they asked him when he would be going to North Carolina.
On the hurricane, Mr. President, why weren't you and Vice President Harris here in Washington commanding this weekend?
I was commanding. I was on the phone for at least 2 hours yesterday and the day before as well. I commanded. It's called a telephone.
Is it
all my security people?
Is it not important for the country to see?
And he slams the door on him. Former President Trump in North Carolina Monday.
As you know, our country is in the final weeks of a hard-fought national election. But in a time like this, when a crisis hits, when our fellow citizens cry out in need, none of that matters. We're not talking about politics now. We have to all get together and get this solved. We need a lot of help. They have to have a lot of help down here. We look out for one another. We pull together. We pitch in. We persevere, and we pull it through.
Kamala Khan read a statement about the destruction, and then right in front of reporters, a perfect time to answer some questions. Yeah, that's not going to happen. And then it was fun time with former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson on their podcast.
One of my guilty pleasures, especially Nacho. Old school, original.
OG,
Come on.
yeah. OG,
Come on.
Red
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Come on.
That's exactly.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on. Man, come on. Give me those Doritos. Give me those Doritos.
Oh, man, we all know politicians pander, but that is just such another level.
She just walked by like 50 reporters.
You know how I do. You know how I do. I throw those Doritos in. It's the old school Doritos.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris, Stanford.
Straight from Canada, not from Canada. A strike by dock workers at 14 ports across the country could end up costing the U.S. economy billions of dollars a day. This after talks stalled between the U.S. Maritime Alliance and the International Longshoremen's Association, which represents 45,000 port workers. The White House hopes for a short strike, but Biden has said he won't intervene.
Mr. Rose has accepted baseball's ultimate sanction, which is lifetime ineligibility.
The all-time Major League Baseball career hits leader has died. Charlie Hustle, Pete Rose, played in the majors for nearly a quarter century, racked up more than 4,200 hits. The 17-time All-Star and 3-time World Series champion passed away Monday at his home in Las Vegas. He was 83 and still not in the Hall. And here's his last interview.
I always believe in baseball, and I believe somewhere in the future, baseball will give me a second chance. That's all I can go on. Okay? I hope it happens while I'm alive. I hope it happens while all my family's alive, because that's really what the Hall of Fame is about. Fans and family. I don't think there's anything I could do about it except what I try to do, keep my nose clean.
And one of your callers said it, and I agree with him. I go back and forth on this one. But when you set the precedent, well, there you go. And that is what we have seen over the past 3 or so decades with Pete Rose. 40 in Lone Tree, 41 in Aurora, 42 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue Tuesday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Sunny and warm. Temperatures will be comfortable in the mid to upper 70s today, 40s and low 50s tonight. Quite hot for October, mid to upper 80s on Wednesday, cooling to near 80 Thursday, low 80s for Friday. Temperatures will be quite warm deep into the 80s for the weekend. Nights will be 40s and 50s, and there's no precipitation in the forecast through the work week and through the weekend. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. In the last hour, we hosted Heidi Ganahl. She's got an article out in Rocky Mountain Voice. If you go to RockyMountainVoice.com, not the gold standard, a bit of fool's gold. Ganahl finds areas of election concern.
Do bookmark Rocky Mountain Voice. It is a great alternative source of conservative news here in our state. Doing a really good job. I know that we're looking for places that feel like they are oftentimes reflecting your voice or sharing stories that you feel important. So check them out. Make sure you bookmark them. Rocky Mountain Voice. They are big fans of the show, and we are big fans of theirs.
Absolutely. All right. Lots of text messages coming in on this. Doug, if I said my gun wasn't loaded, but the magazine is in it, I just haven't chambered around. Is that the same thing? As long as the cards are in there, there is a possibility. I'm not bringing up the last, but the next. If the cards aren't needed, they should be removed. Thanks, Doug. Let's get to the phone lines. Malcolm, Aurora, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Malcolm.
Morning.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to just throw in one more thing about Pete Rose, which is not the most important thing in the world. But for all that I've heard about his accomplishments and what he didn't and his gambling, do you think it matters that he was such a mean-spirited person? I mean, he severely injured that catcher in the All-Star game, which makes no difference at all. And he was just a very dislikable person.
Yeah. Well, considering you're relying on votes, yeah, absolutely. And as we can see with the Democrats this year, oftentimes it comes down to just likability. So, Malcolm, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Malcolm's line will be open, 303-696-1971. Let's go to Francis Golden. Good morning, Francis. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Hey, guys. Hey, this is just a quick tangential, but, in sharp contrast to Pete Rose, who was just, by all accounts, a jerk, to Kemi Mutombo, who by all accounts was a great guy, did a lot of humanitarian stuff, also passed away yesterday. That's just too bad. But
yeah, Francis, great point.
I mean, I don't know. But anyway, here's my question about this with the Heidi Ganahl voting machine problem is that why are we bringing this up now? And we're a month away from the election. And I don't know, I guess logistically, I need somebody who'd be a lot better about thinking about this than me, but can you fix it between now and November 5th? Because otherwise, all this is fodder for a bunch of conspiracy theorists. And I've had the conspiracy theorists up to my ears. I don't need any more of those people in my life. And so post-election, if Trump loses, you've given all of the material to revisit all of this, to have more unrest, spurred on by people who wouldn't have the foggiest idea how these machines work, how they could be fixed, rigged, or anything else.
Francis, I got to be honest. As I'm getting older, I kind of like the conspiracy theorists because a lot of them seem to be coming true as I get older and older. I remember when the idea that COVID came from a Wuhan virus research facility was somehow a conspiracy theorist. And now it's like, well, yeah, that's probably where it came out from. I kind of like the conspiracy theorists these days, but I'd rather have at least one less, even if they just got one done between now and the 36 plus days or whatever to the election.
Here's my conspiracy theory is that I don't think Heidi Ganahl is intentionally doing this, but when you raise these types of issues this close to an election, when it's probably not fixable, maybe now you've given fodder for all the people to create unrest, to call into question an election that Trump lost again, and all of these things that I think could be a reverse conspiracy theory. Really, I mean, why are we doing this now? Oh, to just have everybody call in and say, how could 80-some million people have voted for Kamala Harris? When really the question is, no, actually 80-some million people voted against Donald Trump. You know, that's or some fraction of that number.
Are you concerned, Francis, that there might be violence on either side after this election? Because on the Democrat side, I see the BLM riots, and you know they destroyed cities all over this country. And then on the right, you had January 6th. So,
no, I am very concerned because I think that both sides have shown that they can get off the chain and they can be easily led by a collection of marginal people. I mean, that's both sides have shown this.
Yeah, see, friends, I would say we never should underestimate the stupidity of humans in large groups, universally. In large groups, humans seem to make really, really stupid decisions.
Do you think
I'm worried about this?
Do you think conservatives? We're going off on a bit of a tangent now, but it's an important tangent. Yeah. So, with January 6th, they went through every video. I mean, they parsed everything. You crossed that threshold into the Capitol on January 6th, you are going to pay a very serious price. I don't think they did that at all with the BLM riots. In fact, most of the people that were arrested were kind of let go. So I wonder if there's frustration after this election, if conservatives are going to go, if it was on the conservative side, they're less likely to engage in violence, whereas the left never really paid a price for BLM riots. And so they'll probably just, are they more likely, you think, to run out there and engage in violence?
You mean the left? Yeah, I think they're probably more likely.
I'm not certain about that.
I think they're just more prone to it. I think they're an emotional group of kooks.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Francis. Let's go back to like 2016 and what happened. We had Hillary Clinton going out there and saying the election was stolen. We had other Democrats that were claiming the election was stolen. Now, they didn't go as far as to create a plan to overturn an election. They didn't ask a vice president to not certify an election, but they did protest. But do you remember what they did when they protested? And they marched and they marched.
I don't remember.
And
they made little hats.
Yeah, they knitted. They made hats. They did a lot of crocheting and had pink, cute hats. And they showed up weekend after weekend after weekend. And it was always the different group.
And then Madonna said, I want to bomb the White House.
Yeah, but the thing is, and for all that rhetoric, though, nobody punched a cop. Nobody broke into anything. So I understand the question about it, that I do think that during BLM, that group did get off the chain. And I do think that the same thing happened inside of January 6th. I think it comes down to the groups that are involved. And I'm talking about the subgroups. I don't think that I would be okay saying blanketly Republicans are going to get violent or do anything after the election if they don't agree with it. And I don't agree with it. The Democrats are. But are there pockets of individuals inside of each one that are just waiting for the opportunity? Because I do believe that people like the Proud Boys and the 3%ers, they were there on January 6th to implement a change they already were convinced needed to happen. The January 6th was just the excuse. They had already concluded we need to have a change in our government and Donald Trump needs to be installed as the leader. And this was just the mechanism. They weren't there because they thought the election was stolen. They were there to participate in a party someone else was throwing, and they were more than happy to make things go sideways. That's just my opinion, though.
I think you're right. I think there's subgroups on the left and right that just foment this sort of thing. And I think you're right. I think they have their own agenda that's really, really anti-American in every way, shape, and form. And you know what? If there's something that happens, if people get off the chain again and, the followers are easily duped by these subgroups and things, I want them stepped on with both feet. I mean, I don't want any more of this ever. It's ridiculous. And I want these people, I want them to do serious time and I want them put away. And that's it.
I would agree.
But
regardless of party affiliation,
if it was violent, right? Like there's some folks in January 6th that just kind of cross the threshold and are getting jail time for that. Do you think they should get jail time?
Yeah, absolutely, dude. People get pulled over every day for a DUI that just made a stupid mistake. They can get jail time. They do bad things. It's not unusual. I don't care. People make dumb decisions, and there's consequences for dumb decisions. And I don't, that the whole idea that you could doll up January 6th like it was some sort of a tour group it was laughably stupid.
Do you think you're parsing the event that took place properly? If you lump everybody together, like I'm not saying there are some that shouldn't get punished. I mean, if you hit a cop, you engaged in violence, you were breaking windows by all means. But I think Colorado itself has a grandma that just walked inside praying, and she was facing actual jail time.
Well, I mean, age doesn't, disallow for stupidity. I don't care. I mean, when you're walking around and, you're going to the event that was on the mall and things like that, and at some point, doesn't common sense kick in and you say, wait a minute, I'm not going to go over to the Capitol. That seems ridiculous. I don't care if Donald Trump is egging it on and I like him. He's not going to get my legs pointed in the wrong direction. No.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd throw out there, Francis, is that everybody who says all they did is just walk into the Capitol and didn't do anything else, every single one of those people had to cross a security barrier that was either moved or torn down. And that's the issue. They made that choice to cross over what was an established security barrier for whatever reason. After that,
prison.
Again, you made the choice to go, and they were in an area that they shouldn't have been. And again, it's the Capitol. That's why I firmly disagree with how we did not go after people that denigrated our Capitol during the BLM riots. Those people should have been pounded for what they did.
Absolutely.
But
yes,
for walking in, for walking into our Capitol. I'm not talking about the people because we actually had bullet holes.
Yeah,
in our Capitol, and that person no one was prosecuted for that.
Here's the thing. If you cross a security barrier and you walk into an area of the Capitol in which you're not supposed to be in, yes, you can serve jail time. We can talk about what that looks like. But yes, I'm okay with you serving jail time. That's okay with me. That's okay. I'm okay with that because, again, you had to cross a security barrier to get there. It's not as if the doors were open and all these people were milling about and they went, look, they opened the door for us. Let's go, guys. They had to cross over a police line in order to get there. And anybody around there would have to notice. And I'm not defending her because
we've asked the grandma to come on the show and she's never come. But
I
get it.
I just don't, and it's not, you don't get a First Amendment right to just wander wherever. Everything's restricted by reasonable restrictions in First Amendment land, folks. Sorry, that's how it works. You can't.
Yep.
Francis, I appreciate the call.
Man.
Thanks so much. Francis's line will be open 303-696-1971. Look, are you a homeowner who's considering selling your home? Let Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team use their database of over 14,700 ready buyers to get your home sold for top dollar. Many real estate agents make promises, but very few have the proof to back it up. The Empower Home team has review after review from families they have served that back up what they say. They net their sellers 6.1% more money on average, getting their sellers $30,500 more in their pocket. No matter who wins the election, no matter what kind of market we are in, the Empower Home team brings both the experience and track record to help you navigate your home sale and get you top dollar. If your home doesn't sell, Gay Ribble will actually buy it. That's her guarantee to you. Reach out to my friends and realtors, Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams. Call 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com, GAYE hasthebuyers.com. All right, let's go to Kelsey Castle Rock. Good morning, Kelsey. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Good morning, Jeff and Bill. I have two concerns about the Heidi Ganahl story, whether it's fool's gold or not. The first concern I have is that we cannot review the actual code that counts the ballots. And that may seem stupid, but if you've ever had a computer programming class, you know that you can program a computer to count however you want. You can have it count the first 100 ballots correctly, and then the 101st vote can get thrown to whichever candidate you want, or the 1,001th, or the 1,000,001th. And until you can actually look at the code all the way through, you cannot know that that programming is wrong. And Dominion, as well as Clear Choice that Douglas County uses, will not let us look at the code. It's proprietary. So I can never be convinced that the code is correct.
Got a question for you, Kelsey. In this fall, are you going to vote?
Absolutely.
Why?
And more people need to vote
Why?
because If we beat them by a zillion votes, then they can't cheat.
No, but Kelsey, again, this is the cognitive dissonance that I have. You said that the machines can be programmed to do this to votes, and since we don't have the code, we can't trust the machines. Yet you're going to show up and vote. Why? Your assumption is the machines can't be trusted. Why would you bother?
Well, because I'm an American and I have strong beliefs in this country. And if enough of us vote the correct way, then I believe their cheating won't work.
But that wouldn't matter, Kelsey, because here's the idea. If the system works as you said, where they're going to go in there and change the code so that every so often these votes get changed, it doesn't matter if 10 people show up to vote, or 1,000 people show up to vote, or 1 million people, or 300 million, because the fix is already in and those votes are going to be adjusted. It won't matter. So the idea that you're saying we need to vote in a number that is too large to cheat is not supported by your original premise about your concern about the code inside of the machine. So I'll return to my original question. Why bother voting?
Well, the real answer is we need to see the code. And that's my point.
No, Kelsey, the real answer is you really don't believe that it's stolen, because if you did, you wouldn't vote. If you thought the fix was really in, if you really were this hardcore about needing to see the code, you wouldn't vote because you are so convinced that the code is there and it's going to change your vote. You wouldn't show up, but you're not. You're convinced that your vote still matters. So I don't think you really at your core believe the machines are stealing the vote. I believe it's a rationalization and excuse for when people you like don't win. That now it's not because the voters rejected them. It's because this thing happened, not because the people that I supported were rejected. Because again, at the core, if you really thought those machines were functioning as you laid out, you wouldn't show up to vote.
Well, that's just not true.
Yes, it is.
I don't know how you can possibly know how I believe, and I don't think you have any business telling me how I believe. I'm calling in because I'm concerned that no one is able to review the code, and I've made that very clear. No. I have a second concern.
I understand that, Kelsey. I understand that, Kelsey, but before we move on, I understand that. But you said you're concerned about the code, and you're saying that they can be changed to skip the votes, and you've come to an assumption that that's what's happening, but yet you still show up to vote. You still do have faith in the system. Continue.
Can I go to my second point, or what do you want me to do?
Yeah, continue.
Okay. Well, my second point is, even if we do get to review the code and we are convinced that it counts at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like it ought to all the way through, there can't be any way for anybody to get into the machine and change the code between when they start counting ballots and when they finish counting them. And I'm not concerned about that either. I mean, I am concerned about that. And that's kind of what Heidi brought up. You can get into a computer now through Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. I don't even know what all ways you can get in. And if a machine has that capability, that's another concern.
Now, Kelsey, those abilities have to be turned on by someone inside the machine. When you bring a new computer home, it doesn't automatically connect to your Wi-Fi network. You have to give it authorization to do that. So the idea the machines just blanketly connect to either that or Bluetooth is incorrect. But again, let's go back to the idea of not being able to trust the vote count that you talked about right there. We've had over 250 audits of the 2020 election. Every single one of them has come back reinforcing the original count. Why? Why would we find that across the country in more than 250 audits if the machines are as funky as you claim? Shouldn't we have found at least one place where the vote would be off, that these things were happening? One place?
I've seen places where the vote was off. Now, I'm not an expert on this, and I haven't saved all my notes or all my files. There was an instance in Philadelphia where a gentleman who unfortunately is analytical like I am, and he looked at the pattern of votes going into Philadelphia, and he showed that it was a definite mathematical pattern how the votes were switched from Trump.
I'm familiar. I'm familiar with the guy that you're talking about, and his mathematical theorem is wrong. He's incorrect on that, and he's drawing conclusions that are not correct based on that theorem. I know the guy you're talking about. I know the study you're talking about, and he's wrong. He's using math that doesn't apply in those situations. It doesn't work that way. And again, there have been audits, and nothing has come back to show funky votes, including the ones we have in Colorado. The cyber ninjas went down to Arizona and did their form of an audit and found more votes for Biden. So none of it has shown a significant change in any vote. That should tell you something. But you're still stuck on this idea that the fraud is there, and you're still going to show up to vote.
Let us see the code, and then we'll know. And we'll know, everybody will know that it's The math is correct. Let's see the code.
You don't
Let's
have to
run
see
it
the you don't have to see the code because we can adjudicate it and we can justify that based on the audits. And even hand counted audits. They did hand count audits in Georgia twice, and it came back and verified what the machines were doing. So you're just asking, even if you saw the code, you still would find another excuse because you're using this as an excuse, in my opinion, because you still are going to show up to vote. Even though you're convinced the fraud happens in the machines, you're still going to show up to vote, regardless of the fact that there's been no fraud shown in the machines.
Kelsey, I appreciate the call. Kelsey's line will be open 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. For many of us, it's happening. Your hair is thinning, your crown's disappearing, maybe hair loss has you feeling your identity is lost altogether. Well, I've got good news for you. It's an incredible yet simple one-day treatment that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day. And it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair. We've all seen the pills and lotions that come with monthly subscriptions. They help retain what you have. But what if what you want is your own natural hair growing permanently in specific areas? From Advanced Hair state-of-the-art facilities to world-class Dr. Tanya Pauls, it's not maybe will your hair regrow. It's guaranteed that your new hair will grow. You decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. advancedhair.com. All right, we'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Awayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott is honoring the victims of the October 7th terror attacks that were carried out on Israel. The governor is asking Texans to join him in a moment of silence for the people of Israel and the 7 Americans still held hostage, saying Texas will always stand with Israel. The proclamation states the moment of silence will be held at 7 a.m. Central on the one-year anniversary to honor the victims whose lives were tragically taken due to the acts of war committed by the brutal terrorist organization Hamas, and in remembrance for those who are still held hostage to this day. In addition, all flags will be lowered to half staff, and religious leaders are being asked to light a candle at their next service. A judge has rejected a request to throw out the conviction of a movie armorer in the fatal shooting of a cinematographer by Alec Baldwin on the set of the Western film Rust. The request to dismiss the conviction or retry Hannah Gutierrez-Reed came in response to allegations that prosecutors failed to share evidence that might have been exculpatory. The judge said on Monday that the March 6 jury conviction should stand. She threw out the involuntary manslaughter case against Baldwin in early July. Baldwin was pointing a gun at a cinematographer named Helena Hutchins during a rehearsal on a movie ranch in New Mexico back in 2021 when the gun went off, killing Hutchins and wounding the director.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Phone lines full as we discuss Heidi Ganahl. What did she find out? She's raised some concerns about the upcoming election. She claims they are not the gold standard, but a bit of fool's gold. Primarily, she's concerned about wireless devices being found in Douglas County voting machines. She wants the Secretary of State to remove those, and she wants better video coverage of the ballot drop boxes. Now, where I fall on all this, I'm happy that Heidi's engaging this because I want our elections to be as clear and straightforward as they possibly can be with no fraud. I have never seen evidence that, I'm going to use a sports analogy, that the scoreboard is being tampered with in light of the fact that we scan a Trump ballot and boom, the vote goes for Joe Biden. Never seen that. I haven't seen the evidence to convince me that that's happening. Doesn't mean I don't believe the elections are rigged. So what do I mean by that? Do we have free and fair elections? I think that the Democrats do everything they can to rig the rules of the game in order to benefit one team on the field versus another team. So, for instance, allowing illegal immigrants to vote in local elections. They do that in places like San Francisco. You don't necessarily have to be a resident or a naturalized citizen in order to vote in some local elections. The rigging of the census, from my perspective, to allow communities with large numbers of illegal immigrants to get more electoral college votes and more representation in Congress. I think that's a rigging of the system that helps the Democrats. All mail-in balloting, ballot harvesting, Zuck bucks, what they did on social media during the last presidential election to kill stories that were negative towards the Democrats, shadow banning, all that took place. I think that rigs the system to favor one team over the other. Lawfare, the efforts to keep Robert F. Kennedy off the ballot in some places, the effort here in Colorado to keep Donald Trump off the ballot. So I think they rigged the rules in the system in order to favor one team, and anything that would possibly threaten their ability to win, go in the other direction, they seek to kill, like ID for voting. Have you ever seen them so passionate about something than stopping ID checks for voting? And in fact, in California now, they want to prevent localities from requiring that in their elections. So I think they mess with the rules in order to get their team to win. That's how I think they rig the elections. Let's go to the phone lines. Tim Arvada, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Jeff and Bill. Thanks for having me on. You know, I can't believe that people trust Dominion, for one thing. Computers can be hacked. Wisconsin already found 300,000 ballots that shouldn't have been counted. Arizona is now finding 218,000 people that shouldn't have been registered. And I think I agree with Jeff that, you know, maybe the Dominion machines are perfect. But there are a lot of other things that make us question the election. First of all, I'm an independent. I didn't vote for Kamala. I wanted to vote for RFK. They won't even let me vote for RFK. Kamala didn't even get any. She was the first one to drop out in 2020. Biden couldn't even get anybody to his rally. He had to have cars come to his rally. He hid in the basement. Seems like the same game plan that they pulled off in 2020. And if you don't think there's any Dominion anomalies that occurred in 2020, you didn't watch all the states testify, because the facts were there. All the states overlooked it.
Now, Tim, we've had more than 250 audits, and all of them have shown the voting is solid. No one's been able to prove anything that the Dominion votes were stolen or anything else. We've got proof of that so far in court. Now, you're talking about 30,000 ballots in Wisconsin. What are you referring to? I'm on
300,000 ballots in
Yeah.
Wisconsin shouldn't have been counted.
I can't find that anywhere. What's the reference point on that? When was that announced? Because I can't find anything about 300,000 ballots in Wisconsin that should not have been counted. I just can't. I can find absentee ballots rejected. I can find other concerns, but I can't find that 300,000 ballots inside of Wisconsin that shouldn't been counted. Are you referencing something that happened in the last 12 months, 2 years?
Yeah.
Can you help me out and find this?
4 months. Let me see if I can find it while we're talking. But do you really think that Biden got more votes than Obama when he was hiding in his
Yeah, Tim. Yeah, I do. You know why? Because of the function of populations. Guess what? You know what? Donald Trump got more votes than George Washington. That's crazy. Joe Biden got more votes than Abraham Lincoln. That's nuts. You know who got more votes than Ronald Reagan when he ran the table and took almost the entire state and crushed Walter Mondale? Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, George Bush, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden all got more votes than Ronald Reagan did when he ran the table against Mondale, because that's how population growth works. There are going to be more people voting in this election than voted in the last election. Yes, more people voted. Yes, I can believe that because that's what happens.
And you probably believe that Joe Biden never had dementia.
That seems irrelevant, but I don't care about that question. We're talking about elections. No. Wait, hang on a sec. We were just talking about elections and numbers, and now you go to dementia. That's a weird pivot at this point. So let's go back to your issues on Dominion. What are your issues with the Dominion machines? Just out of curiosity, what are your issues there?
If you would have watched the states testify, there was many anomalies. They can be hooked up to the internet. These people will do anything they can to win an election. I don't trust the Dominion machine. I don't trust anything about. I mean,
okay, that's weird. Now, Tim, let's talk about this. Tim, let's talk this about a sec. Now, why did Fox News then write a nearly $800 million check instead of proving the steal? Why didn't Fox News walk in with all the proof you have, all the states testifying, all the information, all the stuff about Dominion that has convinced you of the steal? Why did Fox News choose to write an $800 million check rather than providing the proof that you say is so self-evident? Why did that happen?
Because they wanted to cut their losses short. They didn't have the money to fund it.
Wait, hang on, Tim. Well, hold on. Cut their losses short. Hold on. Defamation in libel law means truth is an absolute defense. If Fox News walks into that court case, even during preliminary trial, even during the prelims when you are disclosing evidence, if they walk in and they lay all of their information on the table to show the steal happened, the lawsuit goes away. They don't pay a single penny. They don't keep paying their lawyers. They'd save all that money is saved, Tim. So why do they write the nearly $800 million check instead of being the one news outlet that proved the steal happens, instead of saving all of that money for their stockholders, instead of supplanting ABC, NBC, CBS as the number one news broadcaster in America, if not the world? Why do they write an $800 million check?
I don't know.
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense. If the steal happened the way you said it did, Fox News doesn't write the check. Thanks for the call. That's the core issue. If you're wondering about whether or not the election was stolen or anything, Fox News has proven to you in real time that it wasn't. Because if Fox News could prove it, they become the dominant news broadcaster and they don't have to pay the money and they're proven right. Instead, they wrote a check to make the lawsuit go away because they couldn't prove what they claimed on air. That's how defamation and libel law works. There's your proof.
All right, let's get to the phone lines. We're jam-packed, so we'll continue. We do have one open line, 303-696-1971. Frank, Denver, good morning, Frank. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Morning.
Hey, guys, do you guys ever listen to some of your people on your own radio station after hours? The guy I'm speaking specifically of is this guy, John B. Wells, on Saturday and Sunday night.
I've got a show a couple of times.
I don't know what to believe about that guy. He's extremely right-wing. He's, leans toward the conspiracy types. He had a guy on there, a computer guy named Jeff O'Donnell, and he referenced a website called fingerprints of fraud.com. enlightening.com, who took a close look at the 2020 election. And like most of the things, they allow the possibility of, but not absolute proof of. And that's what we're all talking about here. And I think as I hear the temper of the rhetoric go higher and more intense, what I'm seeing is a thing that can cause you from going from being valid through an election, and you can become invalid, like the old folks, invalids. And an election is doing that. And what I sense people's frustration is something that they don't understand, computers and all this stuff about computers. I don't understand it, but it's this zone of non-understanding that makes people go, what happened here? You know, what's happening to my vote? And I, like you, Billy, like this guy, Matt Crane. He sounds like one of the most, knowledgeable persons about computers and elections of anybody I ever heard on your radio station. And thanks for bringing him on. But when he makes a statement like 52 of 64 counties in Colorado have had that Wi-Fi disabled, well, that's a statement, but it doesn't mean that the balance of those 64 counties couldn't change an election outcome in Colorado, because if those counties that were not disabled happen to be high number of counties like Denver, you might come out with a different thing. I truly don't know.
I mean, Frank, I think you tap into the frustration that voters have over the whole process. And I would say, as a conservative, though, if these are the rules that are set up, particularly in blue states where you have ballot harvesting, mail-in ballots, all that stuff that's going on, at this point, I really appreciate the tack that Charlie Kirk and Turning Point are taking, which is, okay, these are the rules of the game. Now, we think that they are set up to favor one particular party than the other. Can't change it at this point. We're going to go and play their game better than they are. I will ballot harvest. You want to see ballot harvesting shut down, turn every church in Colorado into a ballot harvesting operation, and you would see ballot harvesting. And the reason the left embraces these tactics is it because it helps them. And any tactic that hurts them, like voter ID, with regards to voting, you see them fight. They fight at the rules. And rather than speculations over this code, that code, those types of things, fight the rules. If you can't fight the rules, fight the game that they're playing and try to beat them at their own game. Frank, really appreciate the call. We're just out of time. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's get to Chad Freely. Good morning, Chad.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
We're great.
Good.
What's up?
You know, after what Jenna Griswold pulled trying to keep Trump off the ballot, then, you know, it went all the way to the Supreme Court and she got shellacked. You know, she can't expect anything else and, you know, for people to be very skeptical of her.
You know, Chad,
You know?
you're
That's a great
exactly
point, man.
right
I agree with
because look, this is what they have sown, and then people are skeptical. She didn't even have to fight that battle. She chose to do it.
Yeah, she
Chad.
chose to make it political. Thanks, Chad.
Yep,
Appreciate
really
it, man.
appreciate
You're
the
right.
call. We're just out of time. We'll continue to cover all this plus breaking news. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, October 1st. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. We're covering all things, including breaking news. White House official, Iran appears poised to strike Israel. U.S. Embassy warns employees in Israel to shelter in place. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. I mean, what do you expect Iran to do?
Yeah, this is a little scary. And I'm a little scared because this is another sovereign nation that is going to reach out and strike another sovereign nation. I am concerned that within the last 24 hours, maybe 48, Israel has done some stuff inside of Lebanon. They've crossed over into Lebanon and they are hunting Hezbollah. The Lebanese military actually pulled away from where the incursions were happening from Israel. They weren't going to confront them. They were going to say, okay, you can go play with the Hezbollah on your own, which I found strategically remarkable. I did not think that one was coming, that the Lebanese army would pull back and just let them go after the guys. But this is a whole nother level because we know that Iran is going to use air power and it's going to be missiles. That's where they're going to do this, and they're going to go after population centers. They're not. I would be shocked if they tried to attack military installations. I'd be shocked.
And weren't a lot of them shot down last time Iran did this? Yeah. Iran fired a whole bunch of them, and they just kind of fell
Iron
flat.
Dome. Yeah, and the Iron Dome. I understand, and there are some conversations about why can't we in America have something like an Iron Dome? It would be cost and structurally prohibitive to have something like that in the U.S.
Those are littler missiles.
And large landmass too. The issue is the Iron Dome works well because it is short response. Missiles that are not fired from too far away, and it's also an incredibly tiny geographic area. So it's much easier to protect than something like the U.S. We do have a form of an Iron Dome over in Alaska, but that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, I think that the Israeli Iron Dome will do at least 90% of its job right, but will one or two of those things go through? Again, it's going to be a numbers game. How many and what Iran is going to have to balance is if they get to a point of, in my opinion, firing too many missiles and it looks overwhelming because they're trying to break something through the Iron Dome, that's an escalation inside the Middle East. And then how do we pick sides? And I'm not talking we as in America. I'm talking about the world. What is how does the
between
Arab
Iran?
World, how do they line up because of us being such a strong ally of Israel? Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, UAE, all of those are really concerning based on, especially for me, it's Egypt and Saudi Arabia inside of that play. What happens? What side do they take? Or do they just go hands off and say, Iran, you're on your own. We're not doing anything.
And Russia, China, the rest of them as well. I was, in light of the New York Times endorsing Kamala Harris, I went back and read the 2008 endorsement of Barack Obama over John McCain.
Interesting. Yeah, I bet interesting.
And they lauded Barack Obama for his foreign policy negotiation skills. And they felt that John McCain was resurrecting the Cold War by believing that Russia was a threat. This you remember, and didn't you remember in 2012 when Mitt Romney and Barack Obama debated
Russia,
and
in the 80s,
what is this? What are we going back to the Cold War? But they liked the idea that Barack Obama could negotiate with Iran, with Russia, and that McCain was too on the nose in opposing them.
And I feel one of the largest, and I don't think people bring it up enough, but I personally feel one of the huge, the most enormous, if not the most enormous mistake that the Obama administration made is not defending Crimea, not making that an issue, just letting Russia have it. That, to me, if you want to talk about someone, that is not looking at dealing with our allies or with our enemies in a real world situation, that was allowing an enemy to take over a region of another sovereign country. I can't believe that the Obama administration said, nah, we good. That to me is shocking. That to me is one of the largest black marks on their administration because that is unacceptable.
And they were coming out of 2008 and 4 years of the Bush, and how much they lambasted Bush for being an embarrassment on the international stage.
Exactly.
And we needed to get out of Afghanistan and Iraq and all that stuff.
And I would submit that we probably, again, I don't think for sure, but I think that we wouldn't see the same type of a military encounter right now between Ukraine and Russia if Obama had done something about Crimea. I think there's also a play to be done where the Russians took the 3 ships out of the Black Sea from the Ukrainians and held it on for a year during the Trump administration as well. We didn't do anything then. But now what we had is we had 2 subsequent administrations not pushing back on Russia when they were aggressive militarily against Ukraine. So not that hard to feel that Putin was like, I can do this. I got this one. Those guys aren't paying attention and they're telling me they don't care. So it's absurd. That's not hard for Putin to get to that conclusion.
So we'll continue to cover possible imminent strike coming from Iran to Israel and what that could mean for the United States. Are we possibly spinning towards World War III? We'll get to calls as well. And then Elon Musk tweeting out that if Donald Trump is not elected, this will be the last election.
Is he moving? I'm getting excited.
The last, not his,
Oh.
the last election.
Now I'm sad.
So is he right? Or is he caught in the last 35-day crazy hype that happens prior to an election? But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Good morning, Jeff and Billy. 50 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 77 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, once again, as Jeff and Bill just mentioned, Iran is reportedly preparing an imminent airstrike on Israel. According to multiple reports, a senior White House official said the United States has indications that Iran is preparing to imminently launch a ballistic missile attack on Israel.
How low can you go, space?
How low can Nora O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan go tonight as moderators or dictators in the vice presidential debate between Timmy Walz and J.D. Vance? Or will they be smack dab right down the middle? I think we know the answer to that. We will find out tonight on KNUS at 7 o'clock live. Heidi Ganahl, founder of Rocky Mountain Voice, on with Jeff and Bill this morning, and she is looking into election integrity here in the state. She's discovered numerous problems with the system, including electronic voting machines. She'd like an explanation from Secretary of State Jenna Griswold.
I would suggest first she comes out and tells us why she lied about this. Second, why they exist, why the machines are ordered with the Wi-Fi remote access cards in them, and why they haven't removed them. It would literally take a tech person about 30 minutes to take out this little card, and there would be no question. And Jeff, this isn't about past elections. This is about restoring trust in the voters of Colorado and fixing a potential problem that could be catastrophic to our election.
Ganahl has also found that the drop boxes are not as secure as they'd like us to think they are. Hey, here's the latest clown show on messy NBC. Some fool named Eddie Glaude, either brainwashed or one of the best snake oil salesmen since Bill Clinton. Oh, this guy hates former President Trump.
And so part of what we have to do in the midst of this is to engage in a deep-seated political calculus, right? Even though we know that she has to get the middle, we got to come out and try to figure out how to turn out in large historic numbers, because we got to keep this troglodyte out of office. Because if he comes in, our babies are going to be in danger. Because remember, those young children are going to grow up with the memory of having to not go to school for the threat of bombs. And somebody told them that their moms and dads eat cats. If they eat cats and dogs. I'll get myself together, Claire.
Okay, take a minute. Deep breath.
You almost started to cry. Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill was right there. It's just, I mean, he would be a great new host of The View. He needs to lead that group.
You know, it's so sappy. I was talking to Bill about this. I think there's some radio guys or maybe a comedian group that has gotten a food truck now. And on the side of it, it says, eating your cats, eating your dogs. And they're driving around the food truck to see if anybody wants to buy meat. I don't think they're actually selling cats or dogs, but have some fun with it. My goodness. God.
By
the way, a troglodyte is a person who lives in a cave.
Yes,
so that's
absolutely caveman. So he just called Trump a caveman. Can you imagine if you called Kamala a cave woman, or
right? I know he'd be lit up all over and called racist or whatever. But no, I mean, just the emotion, and maybe this is what I want to ask too. Elon Musk saying this is the last election. Do you think he's right about that? I'm going to read about that in a second. But are we getting to hyper-partisanship 35 days out? Or is it really the difference between a caveman and the last election in America?
I just pray that it's not the last election, but these things happen quickly. I mean, who knows?
That is true.
You know,
nations collapse quickly.
Look, what's happened in the past year, I don't think you would even imagine, or maybe you would have. But yeah, it happens quickly. You have to be concerned and aware. I mean, anything's possible at this point. 1 million people are without power in the southeast, and western North Carolina and East Tennessee are reeling from the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. You can see it from above, of course, in the helicopter. Officials in Tennessee say more than 100 people remain unaccounted for. Asheville, North Carolina is reporting at least 40 people killed, with overall toll now around 130 across the southeast. Press wanted to know why the president wasn't there yet.
On the hurricane, Mr. President, why weren't you and Vice President Harris here in Washington commanding this weekend?
I was commanding. I was on the phone for at least 2 hours yesterday and the day before as well. I command. It's called a telephone. All my security people.
Is it not important for the country to see?
So earlier they wanted to know why they weren't there, and then he asked why weren't they commanding it from the White House. Pretty good question, I think. Trump was in North Carolina.
As you know, our country is in the final weeks of a hard-fought national election. But in a time like this, when a crisis hits, when our fellow citizens cry out in need, none of that matters. We're not talking about politics now. We have to.
So then Kamala Khan read a prepared statement and then stiff-armed the press and says no to an actual press scrum, one that Trump takes part in almost every day. And hey, Eddie Glaude, that guy, remember him from Messy NBC? He thinks she's going to protect our freedom and sovereignty. Please. So Harris walks out, and that's it. No questions and none answered.
2-1 pitch from Shaw in the left center. There it is. Rose has eclipsed Cobb. That's number 4,192.
The all-time Major League Baseball career hits leader has died. Charlie Hustle. Pete Rose played in the majors for nearly a quarter of a century, racked up more than 4,200 hits. The 17-time All-Star and 3-time World Series champion passed away Monday in his home in Las Vegas. He was 83 and still not in the Hall of Fame. 46 in Larkspur, 47 in Broomfield, 50 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
One of my guilty pleasures, especially when I'm on the road, are my Doritos.
Oh, what flavor?
Nacho. Old school, original.
OG,
Come on.
yeah.
Hey, it's the Border Czar, or actually the Snack Czar. It's Tuesday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Sunny and warm. Temperatures will be comfortable in the mid to upper 70s today, 40s and low 50s tonight. Quite hot for October, mid to upper 80s on Wednesday, cooling to near 80 Thursday, low 80s for Friday. Temperatures will be quite warm deep into the 80s for the weekend. Nights will be 40s and 50s, and there's no precipitation in the forecast through the work week and through the weekend. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Show. Lots of great calls today. Let's continue with that. Ron Greeley, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. How you doing?
Really good. How are you?
Good. Hey, on that the machine and all that, there's this guy on that I watch on YouTube, PBD, Patrick Bet David. He had this guy by the name of Harry Hursty, He's a cybersecurity expert. And he is saying there is not a machine you can't hack. He said every single machine you can hack into.
Oh, I think he's probably right about that. But to Billy's point, where they've done recounts, even by hand, they haven't found differences between the machine counts.
Well, one thing they said, there has never been in the history of voting, there's always fraud. There's always something going on. If you think back when, was it the 30s, where they would have them change hats and clothes and they come back in line trying to look different?
I mean, the thing is, Ron, we can agree that fraud happens in every election. What we can't find is enough fraud for it to make a significant difference or change a vote. We have singular examples in certain instances. I believe in the last, I want to say the 22 cycle, there was a primary vote in which the Democrat candidate was caught, or the Democrat candidate's wife was caught stuffing the ballot box, like legitimately fake votes, stuffing them in, not doing ballot harvesting or anything else, totally fraudulent votes. And that was caught. So we have instances, but we don't have, especially in the federal elections, anything showing that there is large scale fraud that would change a result. And I think that's part of the problem is I feel like when we're having this conversation, we're jumping at shadows. We're concerned about something that we haven't seen happen.
I think we're debating the wrong thing. And Ron, I appreciate the call. I think, rightfully so, Republicans should go to the mat on the rules of the game. Because that's where the elections are heavily influenced in a direction or another. And I think Elon Musk is probably right about this. Here's a tweet he put out just recently. Very few Americans realize it. If Trump is not elected, this will be the last election. Far from being a threat to democracy, he is the only way to save it. Let me explain. If even 1 in 20 illegals become citizens per year, something that the Democrats are expediting as fast as humanly possible, that would be 2 million new legal votes in 4 years. The voting margin in the swing states is often less than 20,000 votes. That means if the Democrat Party succeeds, there will be no more swing states. Moreover, the Biden-Harris administration has been flying asylum seekers who are fast-tracked to citizenship directly into swing states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Arizona. It is a surefire way to win every election. America then becomes a one-party state, and democracy is over. The only elections will be the Democrat Party primaries. This already happened in California many years ago following the 1986 amnesty. The only thing holding California back from extreme socialism and suffocating government policies is that people can leave California and still remain in America. Once the whole country is controlled by one party, there will be no escape. Everywhere in America will be like the nightmare that is downtown San Francisco. Do you think that the effort to bring in illegal immigrants is a broader effort by the Democrat Party to shift the electorate? Bill?
No, I don't. And I was curious to see if Elon had read that before he tweeted it out, or if he had someone read it for him, because he should have gotten a little bit of help. Part of it, I'll go into something that is just, okay. Let's start here. Elon Musk, I find as a fascinating person because he is one of the living examples of the Dunning-Kruger effect that we have that openly, proudly proclaims his inadequacy in public over and over again. And I appreciate that because it is a wonderful example of him not understanding things, but thinking that because he succeeded in other areas, he now understands everything. One of the things he talked about in there is that California is not going socialism because the people that disagree with it are leaving. How the hell does that work? I mean, just give me a second here. Think about it. If he thinks that California is going super socialist and the thing that is stopping it are the people that don't want to be in the socialist state leaving?
I think his argument would be that businesses are leaving so they don't have the tax revenue to be able to fully implement their plans.
But again, his assumption is that they're going to go full socialism, but people are leaving. So you would assume it would go full socialism, and that would be okay. I don't understand the idea of him sitting there. And he didn't say businesses; he just said people are leaving. He said people, and more people are leaving than businesses are leaving, and that's the issue. It doesn't make any sense at all that somehow the people that disagree with the policies there are preventing.
What do you think? What do you think of
California?
The overall argument, though, that bringing illegals in is an effort to change the electorate?
No, I disagree that fundamentally, because there are two layers to that. One, I think it invalidates the American experience at its core, and it betrays what we consider and look at as American culture that we like to hang on to. But more importantly, the numbers are stupid. I mean, Elon is fear-mongering here. The numbers are ridiculous. He's saying that in the next election cycle, we could have 2 million potential illegals voting. Okay. Do you want to hazard a guess at how many new Gen Z voters we're going to have in this election cycle? Just guess.
No, I don't know.
8 million. 8 million new Gen Z voters. But Elon's worried about the 2 million of illegals. We have exponentially more of Gen Z voters. There are going to be more than 40 million Gen Z voters. Hang on a second. Let me explore this for a second.
Yeah.
There are more than 40 million Gen Z voters that are going to be active since the 2020 election. 40 million that are new. And now we're worried about, and it might not be since the last election, I think 40 million if we go up to the age of 27, so they could have been active for at least maybe 3 election cycles, perhaps. But still, they're new voters. And Elon's focused on this little 2 million. So if the 2 million are enough to change the vote, why aren't we worried about the 8 million?
He uses that as an example because that would be 1 in 20.
Yeah.
But
we got 8 million.
You don't think the Democrats want to provide voting rights to illegal immigrants?
I think that there are some pockets inside the Democrat Party that do see that as a potential voting block. The issue being the idea of giving it to the illegal immigrants, that would have to take a process. And this is the reason that I push back on it. There are 2 reasons. One is that I don't understand for the life of me why the Republicans are just giving up on these potentially new voters. I mean, I've always heard that the Republicans have the better arguments on values, on capitalism, on chasing the American dream. Why wouldn't that message resonate with the new voters? We have instances that have gone viral of people that are in this country illegally and have told reporters, if I could vote, I would vote for Trump. I think he's got a better idea at this. I saw an interview with a guy who's in here illegally, and he doesn't like all the other illegals coming in. And he's like, I would vote for Trump because of his stance on immigration. So I disagree with the base assumption that the GOP makes about these are all going to be new Democrat voters. And if you're just going to give up on them, then yeah, they probably will be new Democrat voters. But if you're going to outreach to them and talk to them, we've seen growth inside the Hispanic community right now. Most of the illegals, we assume, are Hispanic in nature.
Now,
so that's a possibility.
We're a government of the people, by the people, for the people.
Yep.
The people being American citizens. Is it right for the Democrats to even consider offering voting rights to illegal immigrants? Those aren't the people. They're a people.
Yeah.
They're a people that happen to be in our country. But to give those folks who weren't born here, didn't come here legally, the right to vote on the future direction of this country. Is that fair?
Oh, I can agree with that. I am not in any way, shape, or form in favor of letting illegals vote in any sort of a federal election. I am super concerned about the idea of letting them vote in local elections. Even then, I don't think that they should be allowed. I understand why some areas are doing it, but I do disagree because they haven't joined the club. However, inside of census, I do feel they need to be counted because that is how we choose where certain supplies and certain resources go. And just pretending that this town has, 10,000, 15,000, 40,000, 100,000 illegals, pretending they don't exist doesn't mean the town and the facilities there don't feel that increase in the population. So I think there are 2 different things there. But I'm more pushing back on the voting side. I'm not, and especially having illegals vote in national federal elections. No way in hell. No.
I do think it's a Democrat strategy. Thomas Massey writes on the same tweet from Elon Musk, it's a 2-pronged strategy. When they bring illegals to blue states, the blue states get extra electoral votes in the presidential election. That's due to the census, and extra congressional districts, even though the illegals can't vote. This is because we count them in the census and for apportionment. So I absolutely think it's a strategy, because I know how smart Democrats are in making sure the rules go their way in voting, and any threat, any potential problem, whether it's the SAFE Act or voter ID, required ID for voting, they fight passionately, tooth and nail. They scratch to make sure that that doesn't come in, because they know that the rules of the game when it comes to voting matter, and they want every rule that leans the game their direction and are opposed to any rule that may take the advantage away from them. So I do think that this is a strategy set up by Democrats in order to secure, at least right now, more electoral votes and more proportionment when it comes to Congress. And I don't put it past them to try to legalize, provide amnesty in an effort to guarantee illegals the right to vote.
I got a suggestion then. If we're worried about the immigrants, both legal and illegal, and they're concentrated in the blue cities, why don't the red states ask them to come there? Why don't they take them? Why don't you take more of them?
I think that's part of the strategy.
And that would be
because
it,
I don't see them as going rock-ribbed conservative voters.
Yeah, but the thing that
you
I
may
look at
pull out one or two examples, but overwhelmingly they're going to be Democrat voters.
I disagree with that because of the Hispanic culture. And that's the thing is, what I look at is, okay, it gets me depressed and a little bit sad that the Republican Party is just like, nope, nothing we can do to talk to these voters. There's nothing we could possibly do. Well, here's the thing is, but just you just talked about the fact that they're absolutely going to be going to Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you've given up on them.
No, I don't think. No, I did coalitions for. I did coalitions for the Republican Party and for Romney, and we did Juntos con Romney.
Yeah.
So we did our outreach on that. But I'm telling you, bottom line, brass tacks, it's going to require a ton of work, and they're more likely than not, at least initially, to be Democrat voters.
Yeah, because the Democrats are the ones that have been more welcoming, that have said you can integrate into.
They're the ones who allowed them to break the law.
But again, allowed them into the community and given them the things. And when the Republicans tell them they're the problem. So the issue is
the Democrats are the ones willing to take the money from other people to hand it towards illegals.
But
That's
again,
why they like them.
But the issue is they still can be persuadable. And so the idea that the GOP giving up on them, I think that's their own detriment. And that's it.
Yeah, but then again, we're allowing Democrats to change the electoral fabric of this country by allowing people that are not born here, not Americans, to direct this country. And we're saying, well, it's your job, Republicans, to go convince them to vote your way. All right, we'll get to Larry in just a second. And then, Bill, we've got to do Balance Well Space. So let's go to a break, and then we'll get back to Balance Well Space. And Larry, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Awayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is fighting back after a judge ruled that he is not allowed to investigate voter harvesting schemes in the state. Paxton saying he will immediately move to block the ruling that targeted a key Texas election integrity law passed back in 2021 after a federal district court ruled that a portion of the law was unconstitutional. The section increased safeguards to prevent ballot harvesting. The judge also banned Paxton from opening investigations into instances of election fraud under the portion of election code enjoined by the decision. Paxton saying he won't back down and that a ruling weeks prior to an election preventing my office from investigating potential election violations is deeply troubling and risks undermining public trust in our political process. Settlement checks related to Norfolk Southern's disastrous 2023 train derailment could be delayed up to 2 years now because an appeal of a federal judge's decision last week to approve the $600 million deal has been filed. Many residents of East Palestine, Ohio, expressed outrage online over the weekend about the appeal because it will delay the payments they had been counting on to help them recover from the toxic train crash that disrupted their lives when it spewed hazardous chemicals into their community. Some people had planned to use the money to relocate.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Elon Musk tweeting that this could be the last election for America if Trump is not elected. What does he mean? Well, he's looking at places like California. California has taken in the biggest number of illegal immigrants over the years and used to be generally kind of a red state. Ronald Reagan came from there. I knocked doors for Arnold Schwarzenegger back in 2005.
You did that for the governor?
All that stuff for the governor. Walked around Orange County. And even the bread man tweeting about this. Orange County used to be this kind of great, 230,000, 200 to 300,000 Republican vote advantage.
Yeah.
Which would help the state. Now it's just gone so progressive that the only thing that matters election-wise is who wins the Democrat primary. The little Republican that's trotted out is like a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
But
my grandmother's brother lived in Orange County with his family, went out there and visited them a number of times. And yeah, it was a conservative stronghold and kind of this bastion of reality for a number of years inside of California and isn't anymore.
So Elon Musk concerned that the Democrats flying in illegals all over the country and then possibly at some point giving them citizenship or at least the right to vote would turn America away and we'd become a socialist nightmare that is similar to downtown San Francisco. Let's go to the phone lines. And I'd love to hear. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text the show at the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Larry, Aurora, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, guys, for taking my call. But what I want to get you guys input on, I got here like situational justice and enforcement of laws. But if I can, just real quick, when you were talking about Elon Musk, the first thing I just need to do, I just go back to biblical for my own personal self. I just look at it, and people could choose to look that up, the eye of the needle. And my whole thing is that lies get in the way of God's truth. And then if we're talking about Musk, for me personally, and then what people champion, they say if you're a leader, you're a good business person. But I'm going to listen to a person who spent $44 billion, and what I read the other day, it's only 25% of that. So yeah. I mean, what's the, and then also my last thing regarding that is that lies end up fulfilling the prophecy, that came down because lies, end up, Jesus was put to death, but they all had to do with lies. And people believe that, and people was
Larry, help me understand. So you don't trust Elon Musk because he's rich, and you believe he's lying?
Well, no, a man or woman, they can be rich and everything all day. What I'm looking at is what he put out to the universe, and every man and woman, including myself, is going to have to answer to that. Now, he can, like Peter Balls always say, who controls the ink and who controls the megaphone. You put that out to the universe. You put that out to the masses. Now you're talking in my opinion.
So let's talk about his idea, though. Do you think that the 10 million illegal immigrants that have come in under Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, do you think that could affect the future of this country as it relates to future elections?
Well, you know what? Everything impacts. But what I don't come to is people come here, individuals, people get acclimated, they'll make a decision. Just like down in Florida, the Spanish speaking people too. People would think, they're Spanish speaking, they come from over here, over there, but they won't be conservative, but they're conservative.
Yeah, it'd be the Cubans,
but the thing about that, that these people conservative, and they're keeping Florida conservative down there. So just because they come over, and and to me that's fear mongering. To me, it's like you're putting it out to the universe. The Haitians in Ohio, to me that's fear mongering, and that really is unfortunate and it's unfair. So,
you don't think that the 20,000 Haitians that came to Springfield, Ohio, a town of 50 or 60,000, have had any negative impact on the community there?
Well, it's contingent on what you're talking about, negative impact.
Right.
In America, we always got positive and negative impact in anyone in our community. Now, if you're talking about them coming there and if it's taxing the resources, yeah, that's a negative impact. But at the same time, but what I don't hear people saying, wait a minute, they're fulfilling jobs. Wait a minute, these companies need these people. And when I hear they don't speak English, I saw a television program the other day, and all of these kids were speaking fluent English. All of these people were speaking, and they said, how do you feel? I feel, why are they saying these things about us? So, yeah, they're contributors. There's always going to be people who contribute, and there's always going to be people who don't contribute. But who do you put the spotlight on? Because usually it's the masses. It's just like you look at, just look at in general. If, people who go to the mall, so if 10% of the people steal from the mall, but if everybody steals from the mall, could the mall operate? So it's not true that everybody's stealing, but the 10% can impact a little bit, but it's not true that everybody's stealing.
That's a good point, Robert.
Larry, appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Larry's line will be open, 303-696-1971. Let's go to Robert Littleton. Good morning, Robert.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, fellas. The question that you posed of will 10 million illegal aliens affect future elections? Short answer, of course. I mean, there's absolutely no way that you can bring 10 million people into a society and not have it impact future elections, along with virtually every other aspect of our life. There are irrevocable changes that will happen. We can have the debate and the discussion about whether it's some grand conspiracy to replace Native American or native-born American voters, or the white replacement theory. That's whatever. Those are, you can have those discussions at another time. I don't really care about them. But when you bring 10 million people into a society, there are changes that are going to happen. Your previous caller made a very, very good point that not everybody that comes into this country is never going to speak English or going to steal from the store or anything like that. That's just foolishness. But he asked about who you put the spotlight on. You put the spotlight on whoever buttresses your narrative, and that's just the way it is. Whoever is trying to push a narrative is going to highlight the particular situations and individuals who buttress that narrative. So if the narrative is none of them speak English, the footage you're going to show is of people that don't speak English. If your narrative is, they're hardworking, contributing members of a society, that's who you're going to feature. You just got to figure out who's pushing the narrative and what narrative they're pushing.
It's a good point, Robert. I think you got a lot of solid things inside of that, because I do believe that some of these things are being used by both sides. And the immigrant experience is being used by both sides, because like the example I would say would be with Elon Musk in his tweet. He's assuming that it would be negative to all of a sudden have 2 million new voters in the next election cycle. But he ignores the fact that we have 8 million new Gen Z. He's not concerned about them at all. He's saying that because this group is allowed to vote, all of a sudden now things aren't going to be the same. And he's creating that group as a fear point, and he wants you to be afraid of them. And on the other side, Democrats do the other things about them coming in and integrating and being positive members of society, and part of what Larry was talking about in the economic benefits of them having jobs and things like that. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think you hit it right on the head there. But Elon Musk is pushing, and look, Elon's political motivations or affiliations or whatever, I really couldn't care less. As far as I'm concerned, he's another celebrity whose opinion means absolutely squadoosh to me. But his narrative that he's trying to push is that immigration is bad. And so he's going to do whatever he can do to bolster that narrative by fear mongering and everything else. And the Democrats are going to do the same thing, just kind of in the inverse. They're going to say Republicans are bad, and they're all Nazis and fascists and dictators and this, that, and the other. Somebody had mentioned, the Cubans in Florida. It's really disingenuous to compare the Cubans in Florida and the way that they vote in their general political affiliation to illegal immigrants that have come from primarily Central and South America, because the policies for their entry were different. We had a policy under, for 30, 40 years, whatever it was, of feet dry. If a Cuban made it to American shore, they got to stay.
Yeah.
Bam, that was it. And it didn't really matter who they were. And Fidel Castro wasn't a dummy. He knew that, so he dumped his prisons.
Yeah.
Get rid of his undesirables and send them here. But that was the policy of the United States, is that if a Cuban made it to American soil, they got to stay. And they were kind of fast-tracked for naturalization as well.
Yeah, they are. Now, Robert, I hate to cut you off, but we do have to move on, and I apologize, but I appreciate that. And I think you're right, especially about the illegal immigration coming from Central and South America. And I think there is some positives in looking at even some of the Venezuelans, because they would come from what is a more socialist and communism style of government. They would be more persuadable, in my mind, to be part of the GOP and to be conservative. But Robert, I appreciate the phone call, and give us a call back again. I want to talk to you, as long as I got a moment here, about Balance Well Space, a medical team that is making an incredible difference in my life. It's integrative medicine. I didn't know what that meant until I started working with the team at Balance Well Space. It means all the stuff that hurts is taken care of under one roof. Chiropractic care, neuropathic care, physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, regenerative care, trigger point injections, and so much more cutting edge stuff that I don't have time to list it all. What they can do with regenerative care is nothing short of amazing. As we are talking right now, I am regenerating the meniscus in my left knee and regenerating one of the discs in my lower back. My vertebrae were starting to fuse together. We've created space in between those vertebrae and are now regenerating the disc from the small amount of material that was left with the injection of some stem cells. What they can do is literally Star Trek level things, but you got to let them talk to you and sit down and evaluate where you are in your goals so they can tell you how they can fix it. You don't have to live your life in pain. I thought that was just part of getting older. It isn't. So I need you to talk to my friends at Balance Well Space, balancewellspace.com, balancewellspace.com. Brand new offices in Lowry, right across from Hangar 2. Couldn't be easier to find, and plenty of parking. Give them a call. Check them out at balancewellspace.com, balancewellspace.com. I want them to make the same change in your life they're making in mine. And tell them you heard about them here on Jeff and Bill.
Great to hear. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Love me some global warming. Wednesday, the record was set in 2005, was at 88. We may be at 90.
Oh, jeez, too hot. Too damn hot.
The record on Saturday was 86. That was set back in 1997, and it's going to be 88. No chance of precipitation.
Do you see they broke 117 in Phoenix, and that's the latest it's been that hot ever. Last time it was 108. Was the last
down
time
there over the weekend.
I know.
In
That's
Tucson, it was
ridiculous. Why would you do
108.
that?
You just sit in the pool.
Why would
You don't even like. We had like our conference meeting in the pool.
Yeah. For me, I don't understand why humans still live there. Like, it gets hot this time every year. Why
I don't know
are you
why they
still
do
there?
either. And,
Yeah.
they got to run the AC. Like, that's a business I need to be in.
Oh, yeah.
Air conditioning. That's the future global warming.
I'm just kind of looking at this
business
thinking,
to be in.
I think God's telling you something. When he's making it too hot in one area to live, maybe we don't live there. I don't think you view this as a challenge. It's just personally. I'm like, nah, I'm good. Yeah, I think you send me a message. I'm going back home. Bye-bye. I'm going to Colorado. Yeah. No.
That's where they spend. And then when it gets real cold here, they all head back down to
Yeah,
Arizona.
exactly.
I'm absolutely going to be one of those snowbirds when our kids get older.
No way.
You are sticking around. You just nothing like
I love
trudging
the
through
cold.
slush and snow to get to
love
your
the
car.
cold.
Oh,
that can be a
gosh.
pain, but I don't view it as negatively. To me, the hot is worse.
All right. Well, speaking of global warming, probably something that's going to be debated tonight in the vice presidential debate. Salem is providing all the coverage you need starting at 5 o'clock with Larry Elder. Live debate you can listen to here, plus post-debate analysis. All that tonight. You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.